Chapter 450. But, Your Holiness, that person claims to be young Master Yuan's subordinate. He even has an angel's medallion. The entire pontiff's palace fell silent when the paladin knight spoke. What did you say? Helena's voice immediately rang out. Her voice was very sharp as she stared at the paladin knight. There was a trace of undetectable anticipation in her voice. Zhu Zhuqing's teary eyes suddenly lit up. There was a trace of joy in her eyes. Lu Yuan's subordinate. Could it be that there was news from Lu Yuan? Abuchi, there's news from Abuchi? Chihiro Snow suddenly crawled up from the ground. Her hair was messy, and her golden hair was stained with dust. She ran in front of the paladin knight and grabbed his shoulders tightly. Do you think there's news from Abuchi? Chihiro Snow used a lot of strength. She did not restrain her strength in her agitated state. This caused the paladin knight to have a pained expression. This subordinate does not know, but the people outside have indeed said that his young Master Yuan's subordinate. Furthermore, there's important news. There's news from Abuchi. Chihiro Snow released her hands and took a few steps back. Her haggard face was filled with both joy and sorrow. She was happy that there was finally news from Lu Yuan, but she was worried that it was bad news. Chihiro Snow's feelings were extremely complicated right now. Then why don't you hurry up and invite him in? Bibidon said as he looked at the kneeling paladin knight. Yes, Your Holiness. The paladin knight bowed and left the pontiff's palace. Not long after, Yang Shaozhe walked into the pontiff's palace. Ever since Lu Yuan had sent him to deliver a letter to the pontiff's palace, Yang Shaozhe had traveled day and night. He had finally arrived at Martial Spirit City within 5 days. He had always been an extremely responsible person. He could be said to be meticulous. Since Lu Yuan had given him a mission, he naturally had to do his best to complete it properly. It had to be said that Yang Shaozhe had delivered the letter quickly. He had really come at the right time. It just so happened that Helena and Zhu Zhuqing had just returned to the Martial Spirit Palace. They had also just received news of Lu Yuan's accident. They did not have the time to do anything irrational. Otherwise, who knew what would happen if this dragged on for too long? It could only be said that Yang Shaozhe had come at the right time. Greetings, Your Holiness. Yang Shaozhe bowed to Bibi Dong. You are Little Yuan's subordinate. Little Yuan has news for you. Bibi Dong asked. Yang Shaozhe, how is junior brother now? Helena's voice rang out just as Yang Shaozhe finished speaking. Qian Renxue and Zhu Zhuqing turned to look at Yang Shaozhe as soon as he said that. Yang Shaozhe could not help but sigh in his heart when he saw the 3 pairs of concerned eyes. His master was really quite popular with women. He did not need to think to know that these 3 were his mistresses. Including the one from the Great Stardew Forest, there were now 4 mistresses. Yang Shaozhe felt that it was very likely that they would have another relationship in the future. His master didn't seem like someone who could control his feelings so easily. Furthermore, even if his master could control his feelings, it did not mean that other girls would not be attracted to him. After all, his master's fairy-like appearance was enough to make an old man like him, who had lived for 60 to 70 years, sigh in amazement. Furthermore, those young ladies would definitely not be able to resist his master's charm. Yang Shaozhe thought to himself. Mistresses, my master is doing very well. Not only has he fully recovered from his injuries, but he has also become a soul king. Yang Shaozhe said. Ah, is that true? The 3 of them opened their eyes wide at the same time. They were shocked. Not only had he fully recovered from his injuries in such a short period of time, but he had also become a soul king? It was a little unbelievable just thinking about it. It's true. My master is doing very well, and his strength has increased tremendously, Yang Shaozhe said with a smile. After all, how could his strength not increase with the addition of a 100,000-year Titan giant ape soul ring? Then why didn't he come back with you? Zhu Zhuqing asked. Well, it's not that my master doesn't want to come back. It's just that he can't. Yang Shaozhe said. He can't come back. The 3 of them became nervous again. Did something happen again? That's not it. Someone doesn't want him to come back, so my master can't. Yang Shaozhe said. After all, Jiu Yuana wanted to keep Lu Yuan for a year. Who could take him away from Jiu Yuana's hands? This was simply impossible. Someone doesn't want him to come back. Chihiro Snow muttered. She thought of Jiu Yuana's figure that she had seen before. That aura that was as deep as the abyss made Chihiro Snow's heart palpitate. It was definitely an aura that was far superior to Sendryu's. If she wasn't wrong, that woman was very likely a god. Perhaps she didn't want Ibuchi to come back. Only a god had the ability to heal Ibuchi, who was so severely injured, in such a short period of time. But how did Ibuchi get involved with such an existence? Oh, right. There are also letters that my master wrote personally. He asked me to give them to His Holiness the Pope and Mistress Chihiro Snow. Yang Shaozhe waved his hand, and 2 letters appeared in his hands. Oh. Bibidon's interest was piqued. He gave the Douluo a look, and the Douluo hurriedly went down to retrieve the letters. As for the other letter, Chen Renshue directly took it into her hands. His Holiness the Pope. The Douluo passed the letter to Bibidon. Bibidon reached out to receive it. He opened the envelope, took out the letter, and read it carefully. Beside him, Chen Renshue also opened her own envelope, took out the letter, and read it carefully. Helena was a little restless when she saw the 2 of them reading the letters at the same time. Why didn't this junior brother write to me? He only wrote to Chihiro Snow. He was so biased. Nana, Zhuqing, take a look. Ibuchi wrote this letter to the 2 of you. He asked me to tell the 2 of you not to be anxious, and not to find trouble with Chihiro Snow. Take good care of yourselves. He'll be back in a year. Especially you, Nana. Don't do anything irrational. Stay in the martial soul palace. Don't run around, and don't think about finding evil soul masters to take revenge for him. Work hard on your cultivation is the most important thing. Ibuchi said that if you don't listen to him and your abilities don't improve, he'll hang you up and spank you when he comes back. Bibidon sneered as he said this. Ibuchi really dares to say anything. However, he thought about it carefully. Perhaps this was the only way to make Nana behave. Chapter 451. Helena blushed as she listened to Bibidon relay Lu Yuan's words to her. Her junior brother was still as blunt as ever. However, she didn't feel disgusted by his words at all. Instead, she felt a little happy. It was as if her junior brother was still by her side. Stinky junior brother, when you come back, senior sister's improvement will definitely surprise you. Helena softly snorted and a rare smile appeared on her face. It was great that her junior brother was fine. Also, Zhu Qing, little Yuan asked you not to return to the Heavenly Star Academy for now. Stay in the Martial Spirit Hall and learn from the Ghost Douluo about the techniques of Agility System Soul Masters. When he comes back, he will also test your strength. If you don't improve, you will end up like Nana. Bibidon had a weird look on his face as he spoke. Why does this Ibuchi like to play this game? How can he think of hanging someone up and spanking them? Hearing this, Zhu Zhuqing's pretty face turned red, and her cheeks immediately turned red. She was not Helena. Her personality was shy and quiet. Hearing such words, her heart was extremely shy. However, she had the same thoughts as Helena. It was great that Lu Yuan was fine. Here, take a look. There's one more thing at the end of this letter. I'm afraid you'll be angry if you read it, Bibidon said as he passed the letter to the chrysanthemum Douluo. The chrysanthemum Douluo didn't look sideways as he walked down the stairs and passed the letter to Helena. Helena took the letter and read it carefully. Apart from what Bibidon had just said, there were only a few things about the Dragon King Hall. He wanted Bibidon to help him in secret. At the end of the letter, he wrote about Jiu Yuana. What a stinky junior brother. He actually found a 4th person behind our backs. Helena pouted her red lips and looked angry. She slapped the letter into Zhu Zhuqing's hand and sulked. Looking at Helena's appearance, Bibidon was a little amused. This girl looked angry, but in fact, she didn't care much. As long as Ibuchi coaxed her with a few words, she would immediately return to normal. This girl was really under the control of Ibuchi. No wonder that stinky junior brother never calls me Na. He already has a Na, Helena said angrily. Shouldn't the title Na be hers? In the end, it was snatched away by another person. How could Helena not be angry? Seeing Helena's reaction, Bibidon's expression became a bit weird. So you're not angry because your junior brother found a fourth woman, but because of this title? Why did this female disciple of his have such strange thoughts? Bibidon was a little confused. Zhu Zhuqing took the letter that Helena slapped in her hand and read it carefully. The expression on her face didn't change, but her eyes flickered. No wonder you insisted on not accepting Rong Rong. It turns out that you already have a fourth woman. Jiu Yuana, I want to see how beautiful this woman is. She can make you still can't help but be tempted by the three of us. But for the sake of this Jiu Yuana saving you this time, I won't oppose your matter. But whether you can solve the other two depends on your ability. But looking at Helena's appearance, I'm afraid it's easy to solve. Your problem is still Chihiro Snow. Zhu Zhuqing secretly said in her heart. On the side, Chihiro Snow, who was reading a letter alone, cried while reading. Lu Yuan's letter was full of concern for her, asking her not to blame herself and pay attention to take care of herself. This made Chihiro Snow couldn't help but feel moved. Lu Yuan's love, in the end, was still the most on her. Jiu Yuana, this should be the silver-haired woman. You deliberately said so much in the letter, as if you were afraid that I wouldn't agree. It seems that you like her very much. But since you like it, then take it. From now on, no matter what you do, I won't care about you anymore. As long as you're happy, no matter what decision you make, I'll always support you. Your Shuai will always listen to you. I used to be too arrogant and overbearing. Now I know that you are the most important in my heart. As long as you are still here, I don't care about anything. Chihiro Snow muttered to herself. She touched her chest tightly, feeling her beating heart, which was full of the most passionate love. Ibuchi, come back quickly. Just when Chihiro Snow was thinking about Lu Yuan, Helena's voice suddenly sounded beside her. Chihiro Snow, what did junior brother write in the letter to you? The current Helena was no longer afraid of Chihiro Snow. Instead, she looked calm. So what if it was Chihiro Snow? Could he eat her? She, Helena, was not afraid. Moreover, she hadn't settled the matter of junior brother's accident with Chihiro Snow. The current Helena could be said to be quite calm. Especially after knowing that Lu Yuan was fine, her worries were dispelled, and her mood was particularly relaxed. However, there was one thing she had been brooding about: her name had been stolen by someone else. Nothing, just some words. If you want to see it, you can take it. Chihiro Snow handed the letter to Helena. After learning that Lu Yuan was fine, her mood slowly recovered. Seeing Helena's slightly provocative look at the moment, Chihiro Snow's heart didn't fluctuate at all. She didn't care about this now. Helena's provocation was provocation, and she was too lazy to care about it. She was the legal wife, and this was decided by Lu Yuan, so she disdained to quarrel with Helena. Presumably, a tolerant and magnanimous her was what Ibuchi wanted to see more. After all, she was the legal wife, and she couldn't be calculative about everything. Thinking like this, Chihiro Snow felt that she was too inferior before. If she had to fight for everything, it would seem that she was narrow-minded. If it weren't for Ibuchi's good temper and doting on her, there would have been a conflict. Hey, I'm too lazy to read it. Looking at Chihiro Snow's appearance, Helena had no interest in reading the letter. Hey, Chihiro Snow, Jiu Yuana that junior brother mentioned, you should also know. Helena said. En. Chihiro Snow nodded. What's your opinion? Don't you agree? Helena asked, with a trace of expectation on her face. Stinky junior brother loves Chihiro Snow the most. If she doesn't agree, then it will be fun. It won't be so easy for Jiu Yuana to enter the door. But who told her to steal my name? Stinky junior brother hasn't called me Naya yet, but Jiu Yuana took the lead. Chihiro Snow faintly glanced at Helena, and a strange light flashed in his golden eyes. What does Helena mean by asking this sentence? Chihiro Snow secretly thought in his heart. Chapter 452. Is this Helena purely trying to test my attitude towards Gyuuena? Or does she have other intentions in her heart? Chihiro Snow thought for a moment, and got the answer after a while. If he didn't hear wrong, this Helena seemed to be angry because Gyuuena stole her NAR title. Thinking about it, she wants me to disagree with the relationship between Ibuchi and Gyuuena, so that Gyuuena can't enter the door? Chihiro Snow suddenly thought of the answer, and at the same time sneered in his heart. Good smelly fox, you're jealous in your heart, but you don't want to be the bad guy in front of Ibuchi, so you want to use me as the scapegoat, right? Unfortunately, you guessed wrong. I really don't care now. Do you think I'm still the same Chihiro Snow who only knows how to haggle over every little thing? You're underestimating me too much. I have no objection to this Gyuuena, as long as Ibuchi likes her. Looking at Helena beside him, Chihiro Snow said calmly. Huh. After listening to Chihiro Snow's words, Helena, Zhu, and even Bibidon on the Pope's throne couldn't help but cast a surprised look. Is this really something that Chihiro Snow would say? You agree? Helena looked at Chihiro Snow with some surprise. Didn't Smelly Junior Brother say before that Chihiro Snow was the most strict with him? Now he actually agreed to let Gyuuena enter the door so easily? I agree, because this Gyuuena saved Ibuchi's life. If it weren't for her, we would never have seen Ibuchi again, and Ibuchi likes her very much, so I don't object. Chihiro Snow said lightly. Hearing this, Helena choked. Yes, Chihiro Snow is right. This Gyuuena saved Junior Brother's life. There is really no reason to object. Zhu, what do you think? Do you agree to let Gyuuena in? Helena turned to Zhu and asked. I agree. Not to mention that she saved Lu Yuan's life. As long as Lu Yuan likes her, I'll agree. Zhu cold voice rang out. Don't tell me you don't agree. Zhu looked at Helena in astonishment. This is what your most beloved junior brother wants to do. Do you dare to oppose? Of course I agree. Helena immediately said when Zhu looked at her. She didn't want them to know that she was targeting Gyuuena because of her name. Otherwise, if one of them leaked it and told junior brother, she would be in trouble. Then why are you still asking? Chihiro Snow stared at Helena. I just think that Gyuuena is a bit too much, Helena said. Too much? Chihiro Snow and Zhu looked at each other with some doubts. They didn't understand what Helena meant. Yes, she is too much. She actually wants to leave junior brother alone for a year. Doesn't this mean that we won't be able to see junior brother for a year? She is declaring war on us. Helena said indignantly. This time, she was really angry. She couldn't see her beloved junior brother for a year. How was she supposed to live? She missed him so much that she couldn't even see him for a day. Hearing Helena's words, Chihiro Snow and Zhu frowned at the same time. Indeed, it was a bit too much to leave Lu Yuan alone for a year. They couldn't stand not seeing Lu Yuan for a year. But what could they do? Lu Yuan didn't say where they were now in the letter, so even if they wanted to find Lu Yuan, they couldn't find him. Besides waiting for a year, what else could they do? Besides, with Gyuuena's strength, Chihiro Snow didn't believe that anyone could take Lu Yuan away from her. It was almost impossible. Therefore, they still had to wait. You see, you also think that Gyuuena is too much, right? Helena said. Hearing that, Chihiro Snow and Zhu were silent. They indeed thought so in their hearts. However, Chihiro Snow was still Chihiro Snow after all. She thought for a moment and said, things have already come to this point. It's useless even if we insist. It's only a year. After a year, Ibuchi will come back. Instead of saying this to us here, why don't you report it to your junior brother after a year? Isn't everything decided by him? What can we do even if we think about it? What's important is his thoughts, not ours. If he wants to protect Gyuuena, what can we do to her? Moreover, Abuchi said very clearly in the letter that he owes her a lot. This year is his compensation. Don't make trouble now. And don't think that I don't know what you are thinking. You are secretly angry because Gu Uena stole your NAR title, but you don't dare to go against her alone, so you want to pull us together. Chihiro Snow's tone was flat. She knew how terrifying Gu Uena was. Such an existence was simply unimaginable. Although she didn't know why Lu Yuan was related to her, now that Lu Yuan was with her, there was no need to care so much. As long as she didn't have any malice towards Lu Yuan, then let nature take its course. As for the meaning of Helena's words, Chihiro Snow didn't consider it at all. This kind of thing was definitely the last thing Abuchi wanted to see. If they really did this, it would only make him angry for no reason. Instead of doing something meaningless, it was better to wait for Abuchi to come back and report it to him alone. The effect would be much better. It could be said that after this incident, Chihiro Snow's character had really changed a lot. She was becoming more and more like a woman. As for Helena, she didn't have any malice. She was just a little jealous. Although she looked indignant, she didn't have the courage to do anything. Zhu Zhuqing had been quietly watching the two. She had a quiet personality and didn't like to fight. Although she was a little jealous, after all, she hadn't seen Lu Yuan for a year, so it was inevitable that she would miss him. However, she didn't have any resentment and wanted to go against him. After all, this wasn't in line with her character. At most, she would wait for Lu Yuan to come back and privately complain to Lu Yuan. When Helena heard Chihiro Snow's words, she couldn't help but stiffen. Her face revealed a trace of embarrassment. It turned out that her thoughts were seen through by Chihiro Snow. This Chihiro Snow was really smart. Helena didn't say anything. She lowered her head slightly and looked at her shoes. She suddenly realized that her shoes today were quite nice. That's all for now. We'll just follow what Abuchi wrote in the letter. Chihiro Snow folded the letter and put it into his soul tool. We'll meet again in a year, Chihiro Snow said as he turned around and left the pontiff's palace. Lu Yuan had also told her in the letter that she had to complete her mission well and help take care of the Dragon King Palace. She had to do this well. She couldn't let Lu Yuan down. Chapter 453. After Chihiro Snow left, Helena and Zhu Zhuqing naturally remained in the Martial Soul Palace. After all, Lu Yuan had instructed them to do so, and they were very obedient. After Yang Shaozhe delivered the letter, he immediately rushed to the Dragon King Hall. Lu Yuan still had a letter to pass to Douluo. At the same time, he asked Yang Shaozhe to take over the Dragon King Hall. After all, the Dragon King Hall and the Seven Treasures Glazed Sect were working together. However, the sword Douluo of the Seven Treasures Glazed Sect wasn't weak. Douluo wasn't a match for him. How could he control them if he wasn't strong enough? Yang Shaozhe was different. He was a rank 97 Transcendent Douluo, and his martial soul was the Radiant Phoenix. If they really fought, the sword Douluo wouldn't be his match. Only he could control the Seven Treasures Glazed Sect. Of course, there was also Long Xiaoyaro. According to the time, Long Xiaoyaro and the fellows should be returning to the Dragon King Hall soon. When that time came, they might even meet Long Xiaoyaro. Long Xiaoyaro had followed Lu Yuan for so long, and had contributed a lot. Since he couldn't get a wife, it wasn't a bad idea to give him a son first. It was also a way for him to experience the existence of kinship. After all, Long Xiaoyaro didn't experience any kinship in the original novel. This was one of the reasons why Lu Yuan made such arrangements. Under such circumstances, a year passed by quietly. Dragon roaming the great void. On the Lake of Life, Lu Yuan let out a low growl and his figure suddenly changed. His figure disappeared, and a giant golden dragon appeared on the spot. This dragon was different from the so-called huge dragons on the Douluo continent. Its head was like a cow's, its horns were like a deer's, its eyes were like prawns, its ears were like elephants, its neck was like a snake, its scales were like fish, its claws were like a phoenix, its palms were like a tiger's, it had whiskers beside its mouth, and there were reverse scales below its throat. As it flew across the sky, it released a bright divine aura. Its golden scales shone brightly, and its horns stood tall. There were 5 sharp dragon claws on each of its palms. After circling around in the sky, it landed. The huge dragon's figure flashed, and it returned to its original human form. Lu Yuan stepped on the surface of the Lake of Life with a big smile on his face. Dragon swimming in the great void, this is a self-created soul skill that I've been thinking about for a long time. I've been thinking about it since I went to the ruins of life. Now that I'm 14 years old, it's been almost 5 years. It really wasn't easy. Lu Yuan sighed softly and said, "This dragon swimming through the great void fuses my movement technique and powerful attack power into one, allowing me to transform into a divine dragon to fight my enemies. It can truly be considered the peak of my self-created soul skills." After spending 5 years, I finally have some results. Moreover, the feeling of transforming into a 5-clawed golden dragon is really different. I feel much more handsome than the golden dragon. If my bloodline evolves in the future, I hope I can change the form of my martial soul. This golden dragon martial soul doesn't look as comfortable as my Huaxia divine dragon. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. The dragon swimming through the great void was a self-created soul skill, so he could design it himself. However, it was very difficult to change the appearance of his martial soul. Perhaps the only opportunity was when his bloodline evolved. After all, his bloodline had already embarked on a unique path. Once it evolved, the mentality of his martial soul would change. It was very normal. Lu Yuan walked towards the shore with light footsteps. Jiyu Yuana, Wang Qiu and the rest were waiting for him on the shore. Unknowingly, he had been in the Great Douluo forest for almost a year. His soul power had already reached rank 57. During this year in the Great Douluo forest, his soul power had increased by 2 ranks. It didn't seem very fast, but he hadn't cultivated his soul power much over the past year. He had mainly been polishing his original soul skills and studying the dragon swimming through the great void. After all, it wasn't always better to increase one's soul power as quickly as possible. First, one had to stabilize one's foundation and temper one's soul power so that one could control it more freely. Only then would one's future path be easier. He leaped up and landed on the shore, in front of Jiyu Yuana and the rest. Jiyu Yuana lifted her snow-white hand as she looked at Lu Yuan. She gently wiped away the water droplets that had stuck to Lu Yuan's forehead. Her actions were very gentle, and she looked like a gentle little wife. Lu Yuan grabbed Jiyu Yuana's hand. His gaze was gentle, and the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. Even though he had only been with Jiyu Yuana for the past year, Lu Yuan didn't feel bored at all. Instead, Jiyu Yuana's gentleness and intelligence had unwittingly conquered his heart. It was very relaxing to be with Jiyu Yuana. He was even a little intoxicated by this kind of life. However, there were still people waiting for him in the human world. There were still many things for him to deal with. He had to go back. A year's time is almost up. Lu Yuan said softly as he held Jiyu Yuana's hand. Jiyu Yuana's hand paused. Her face was calm, and no expression could be seen. However, there was a trace of grievance in her voice. "Do you not want to be with me that much? Do you count the time every day?" "Of course not." Seeing Jiyu Yuana like this, Lu Yuan gently hugged her and said, "Of course I want to be with you. It's just that there really are some things that I need to deal with. You know that I have a lot of responsibilities on my shoulders. I have to work hard right now." Seeing Lu Yuan's sincere expression, Jiyu Yuana couldn't help but lower her eyes. She said softly, "Then spend the last few days with me. Once you leave, I don't know when I'll be able to see you again." "Okay." Hearing the reluctance in Jiyu Yuana's voice, Lu Yuan immediately nodded. In fact, Jiyu Yuana wasn't the only one who was reluctant to part with him. He was also reluctant to part with Jiyu Yuana. "Let's go and roast something to eat." Lu Yuan held Jiyu Yuana's hand and walked forward. What do you want to eat?" Lu Yuan asked as they walked. "I'm fine with anything. You can decide," Jiu Yuana said. Okay, then let's roast a rabbit. Rabbit meat is delicious. Lu Yuan pondered for a moment before he said. For some reason, he liked rabbit meat very much ever since he came to the Douluo continent. He felt that it was very chewy, and it tasted very good. Okay, I'll listen to you, Jiu Yuana said gently. Then what do you want to eat, Qiu-er? Lu Yuan asked with a smile as he looked at Wang Qiu-er, who was walking to his right. I'll eat whatever big brother makes. Wang Qiu-er's clear voice sounded. Good girl. Lu Yuan smiled as he patted her head. His voice was very gentle. Let's go. I think Sister Xiaodao has already prepared all the ingredients. This glutton can really eat. Xiao Wu's little rabbit can also eat a lot. Lu Yuan's voice sounded. Hearing this, Jiu Yuana smiled. However, she felt that something was wrong. He seemed to want to roast a rabbit, but... Chapter 454. Beside the Lake of Life, there were two people and one beast standing quietly. The beast was naturally the sky azure bull python, while the two people were Ma Xiaodao and Xiao Wu. Normally, when Lu Yuan was inside with Jiu Yuana and the others, Ma Xiaodao would be here with Xiao Wu and the others. Coincidentally, Ma Xiaodao and Xiao Wu had unexpectedly become good friends over the past year. Xiao Wu, who was originally a little estranged and even disgusted with humans because of Tang San, actually got along well with Ma Xiaodao. This surprised Lu Yuan for a moment. However, after thinking about it carefully, Ma Xiaodao was an impatient person. Her personality was carefree like a boy. Sometimes, she was very reckless. However, she had her own advantages. That was, she was kind and warm-hearted. Therefore, she was very easy to get along with. Xiao Wu was also a little rude and unreasonable, and liked to cause trouble. Although she was a lot more obedient in front of Lu Yuan, her personality wasn't so easily changed. Their personalities were similar, so it wasn't strange for them to become friends. However, the two of them had almost turned the entire Great Star Do forest upside down over the past year. They caused trouble everywhere they went, and many of the more ferocious soul beasts were often beaten up by the two of them. This was especially true for a 50,000-year man-faced demon spider emperor, who had been caught and beaten by the two of them countless times. Strangely enough, Xiao Wu seemed to hate the man-faced demon spider a lot. Every time, she would get Ma Xiaodao to beat it half to death before letting it go. Then, she would find it again after 10 days and beat it up again. Many 100,000-year soul beasts couldn't bear to see it. Even though the man-faced demon spider was an evil killer, it was still a little shocking to see it being bullied like this. Even Di Tian was alarmed about the two of them. He even came to Lu Yuan to complain about them, saying that the two of them were always fooling around and messing up the Great Star Do forest. After Lu Yuan appeared, he taught the two of them a lesson. Only then did they settle down. However, the two of them seemed a little off today. When Lu Yuan arrived, he saw Xiao Wu pouting, as if she was sulking. Ma Xiaodao stood at the side with an innocent look on her face. What's wrong, Sister Xiaodao? Did you make this little rabbit angry? Lu Yuan looked at Ma Xiaodao curiously and asked. It wasn't me who made her angry. It was you who made her angry, little brother. Ma Xiaodao said with a smile. I made her angry? Lu Yuan was a little puzzled, but when his gaze shifted to the two dead rabbits in Ma Xiaodao's hands, he instantly understood. It turned out that the little rabbit was angry because he wanted to eat the rabbit. But even if she was angry, she still had to eat this rabbit. Since they had already been killed, it would be a waste not to eat them. He was a thrifty person. Big Sister Xiaodao, you only caught 2 rabbits. Lu Yuan looked at Ma Xiaodao in confusion. With so many people, 2 rabbits weren't enough to eat. There's still a lot of fish. Ma Xiaodao waved her right hand. There was a big string of fish in it. It looked like there were more than a dozen of them. Okay, if that's the case, it's enough. Lu Yuan nodded and said. Then little brother, let's make grilled fish first. I love grilled fish the most. Speaking of grilled fish, Ma Xiaodao's eyes lit up. No, Let's make grilled rabbit first. When he said this, Xiao Wu pouted even more. Looking at Lu Yuan's mischievous smile, Ma Xiaodao couldn't help but secretly shake her head. This little brother of hers really had some bad taste. After peeling, cleaning, marinating, and processing all the rabbits and fish, Lu Yuan started the fire and prepared to barbecue. To be honest, Lu Yuan was probably the first person who dared to start a fire and barbecue in the core area of the Great Douluo forest. After lighting the fire, Lu Yuan started his own actions. Placing the processed rabbits on the simple grill, Lu Yuan started the barbecue. As he barbecued the meat, he brushed oil on the rabbits. Only this way would the rabbits be more tender. Not far away, Xiao Wu was secretly watching Lu Yuan's actions. Her little face was pouting, and her little mouth was pouting. Her eyes were full of complaints about Lu Yuan's actions. "Little rabbit, what are you looking at over there? Come over here." Looking at the sulking Xiao Wu, Lu Yuan called out. Hearing Lu Yuan's voice, Xiao Wu walked over reluctantly. Her eyes were full of complaints. "Rabbits are so cute. Why do you want to eat rabbits?" "Yes, rabbits are so cute. Of course I want to eat rabbits. Sprinkle some chili and cumin. The sky azure ball python next door is craving for it," Lu Yuan said with a smile. "Fart." Ma Xiaodao immediately laughed out loud. Looking at Lu Yuan beside her, there was a trace of strangeness in her eyes. This little brother of hers is really naughty. He only knows how to tease people. Even Jiyu Yuana couldn't help but smile when she heard Lu Yuan's words, a faint smile appearing on her pretty face. The sky azure ball python, hearing Lu Yuan's words, Xiao Wu was even angrier. However, in front of Lu Yuan, she didn't dare to lose her temper. She sat to the side with a bitter expression and didn't say a word. "Little rabbit, are you angry?" Lu Yuan tilted his head and asked. Xiao Wu turned to look at Lu Yuan with eyes full of resentment. "Heh, so you're really angry?" Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. "In this world, the weak are prey to the strong. We eat rabbits, and other soul beasts also eat them. Who knows how many rabbits are eaten every day? If you get angry every time someone eats a rabbit, then you'll never stop being angry. Furthermore, we only eat the lowest level rabbits. We didn't touch those rabbits that have developed intelligence. Only those with intelligence can be called true living beings. I won't touch those existences. That's because they're really killing. The rabbits we eat now are actually the same as the meat you eat in the human world. When you eat pork, do you feel bad?" Lu Yuan asked. "No." Xiao Wu shook her head. "That's right. That's why we don't feel bad when we eat rabbit meat." Lu Yuan chuckled as he spoke. This smile made Xiao Wu look at him with hidden bitterness. Of course, she knew that Lu Yuan's words made sense. However, she was also a rabbit. When Lu Yuan and the others ate rabbits, she felt a little strange. It smells so good." Under the effects of the flames, the rabbits on the grill were a beautiful golden color. Hot oil was continuously dripping down from the grill, and at the same time, a rich aroma was slowly wafting from the roasted rabbits. "It does smell very good. Little brother master, your cooking is getting better and better." Ma Xiaodao couldn't help but lick her lips. She was starting to feel like eating. Xiao Wu's nose also twitched. When she smelled this aroma, she couldn't help but gulp. It did indeed smell very good. Chapter 455. Half an hour later, everyone finally finished their meal. Lu Yuan found a clean place to lie down and bask in the sun. It was quite comfortable. Jiyu Yuana sat beside Lu Yuan and gently massaged his temples with her bare hands to relieve his fatigue. He had to admit that Jiyu Yuana was impeccable when it came to being a girlfriend. She was perfect. Lu Yuan took a deep breath as he felt the warmth from Jiyu Yuana's hands. Life like this was so comfortable. There were no fights or schemes in the depths of the Great Douluo forest. It was rather relaxing to stay here, and he was starting to fall in love with this kind of life. Lu Yuan closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Another 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The next morning, The strange space under the lake of life. Lu Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. A year had passed, and he was going to leave today. He was a little reluctant to part with Jiyu Yuena as he looked at her beautiful face in his arms. Once he left the great Star Do forest, he didn't know when he would be able to see her again. It could very well be a year or two later. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed as he carefully examined Jiyu Yuena. Over the past year, Lu Yuan hadn't taken the final step with Jiyu Yuena, even though he had slept with her. Jiyu Yuena's injuries hadn't healed yet, and he didn't want to touch her under such circumstances. However, he had seen most of what he needed to see. But no matter how many times he looked at her, Jiyu Yuena was still so stunningly beautiful, and he couldn't help but sigh. She was like Chihiro Snow, and they both had a mesmerizing charm. This charm was something that Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing lacked. Jiyu Yuena seemed to have sensed Lu Yuan's examination, and she gently opened her purple eyes. She looked at Lu Yuan with her clear, amethyst-like eyes, filled with deep affection. "You're awake." Lu Yuan smiled and gently stroked Jiyu Yuena's jade-like cheek. "Ian, you're leaving today, right?" Jiyu Yuena blinked her beautiful eyes and asked in a gentle voice. "Yes, I've been away for a year. I don't know how the Martial Soul Palace and Dragon King Palace are doing. It's time for me to go back and have a look," Lu Yuan said. "Is that so?" Jiyu Yuena was silent for a while before she snuggled closer into Lu Yuan's arms. Lu Yuan's left hand moved slightly and wrapped around Jiyu Yuena's waist. Jiyu Yuena's eyes flickered as she said softly, "It's the last day. Take me." "Have you recovered from your injuries?" Lu Yuan asked. "I recovered 2 months ago," Jiyu Yuena said softly. "Is that so?" Lu Yuan was silent for a moment, then asked, "So you've completely recovered your strength as a second-tier god?" At her peak, Jiyu Yuena's strength was comparable to a divine king, but that was only at her peak. Now that her injuries had healed, her strength had not fully recovered. It would take a long time for her to fully recover her strength. After all, her injuries were so serious and she had endured for so many years. It was unrealistic for her to fully recover her strength in such a short time. However, it was not a problem for her to be comparable to a second-tier god. "Ian, I've already recovered my strength as a second-tier god. Coupled with my powerful mental strength and the esoteric word you taught me, an ordinary first-tier god wouldn't be able to take me down," Jiyu Yuena said softly with a strong confidence in her voice. Hearing this, Lu Yuan smiled bitterly. His girlfriend was really too strong. The pressure was as great as a mountain. Lu Yuan looked at Jiyu Yuena's shy and expectant eyes, then shook his head and said, "Next time. When my bloodline evolves, how about we give birth to a little dragon god?" Hearing this, Jiyu Yuena's eyes dimmed slightly and said, "All right then." Seeing Jiyu Yuena like this, how could Lu Yuan not know her disappointment? However, this was not a good idea for the time being. Zhu Zhuqing had arrived before Jiyu Yuena. If she knew that Jiyu Yuena had arrived before her, then no matter how good Zhu Zhuqing's temper was, she would inevitably have a knot in her heart. Moreover, if they really started now, with his strength, he would not be able to leave today. There was definitely not enough time. Therefore, it was better to leave it for later. Hugging Jiyu Yuena tightly, Lu Yuan rested his chin on Jiyu Yuena's forehead and comforted her. "Nea, I'll be leaving now." Beside the lake of life, Lu Yuan said as he gently held Jiyu Yuena's jade-like hand. "Ian, remember to take good care of yourself," Jiyu Yuena said as she gently fixed Lu Yuan's collar. "Ian, you too," Lu Yuan said softly as he gently brushed Jiyu Yuena's silver hair. "Choa, I'll be leaving first. I'll come and see you again if I have the chance." After saying goodbye to Jiyu Yuena, Lu Yuan bent down and gently rubbed the three-eyed golden lion's head with a smile on his face. "Brother." The three-eyed golden lion's clear voice rang out as she gently rubbed her head against Lu Yuan's palm. "You have to listen to your sister Nea in the forest. Don't act like a little tyrant and throw your weight around. Especially don't be like a certain unscrupulous rabbit who only knows how to cause trouble all day long. When it's done, I have to clean up the mess," Lu Yuan said as he glanced at Xiao Wu, who was not too far away. When Xiao Wu saw this, she immediately shrank back. This little rabbit was a little afraid of Lu Yuan when he was serious. Chou will be obedient. The three-eyed golden lion nodded her little head and was unusually obedient. That's a good girl. After gently patting the three-eyed golden lion's head, Lu Yuan stood up and called out to Ma Xiaodao, who was not too far away. Let's go, Sister Xiaodao. As he spoke, he hugged Jiu Yuana, who was beside him, and turned to leave. Xiao Wu, Sister Xiaodao will be leaving first. Ma Xiaodao smiled as she waved at Xiao Wu and followed behind Lu Yuan. The group watched as Lu Yuan and Xiao Wu's figures gradually disappeared. As she watched Lu Yuan's figure gradually fade away, the three-eyed golden lion's golden eyes blinked. A strange ripple flashed across her eyes, as if she had made a decision. Lu Yuan and Ma Xiaotao's speed was naturally not slow. It didn't take them long to leave the core area. After about an hour, the two of them reached the entrance to the Lake of Life. Suddenly, a loud roar rang out, and a dark golden bear that was more than 20 meters tall appeared in front of the two of them. It was very majestic, and even the Titan giant ape, the former king of the forest, was only a little brother in front of it. It had a pair of incomparably sharp dark golden claws. When it extended its claws, they were at least 2 meters long. These claws were much more powerful than Lu Yuan's dark golden terror claws, which were only 2 feet long. Chapter 456. Lu Yuan immediately recognized this soul beast as one of the 10 great beasts, Bear Lord. This was a 400,000-year-old dark golden terror-claw bear, and it was close to the limit of the soul transformation stage. Aside from Di Tian, it was the most powerful great beast in the Great Stardow Forest. Of course, it was currently guarding the gate between the core region and the hybrid region. This was originally the duty of the Sky Azure Bull Python, but Lu Yuan had assigned it to Bear Lord. Hey, Bear Lord, long time no see. Lu Yuan greeted Bear Lord with a smile. He had already repaid his debt to Long Xiaoyaro by guarding this gate. Lu Yuan wasn't the type to be petty, and he wasn't the type to hold others accountable for their mistakes. On the contrary, Bear Lord was going to be the main force that was going to crush the Clear Sky sect in the future, so shouldn't he treat it with a better attitude? So it's you. Bear Lord's massive body was bent over, and its massive head was slightly lowered. Its 2 bright yellow eyes were shining like lanterns. Are you preparing to return to the human world? Bear Lord spoke in a soft voice, but its voice was like muffled thunder that exploded beside Lu Yuan's ears. Yes, I'm returning to the human world to interact with humans, and my powers will improve faster. Lu Yuan casually replied. In any case, only Jiu Yuana and Di Tian knew that he was a human. Aside from the two of them, the other savage beasts all thought that he was a golden dragon in human form. Soul beasts would become stronger when they came into contact with humans, and this was common knowledge to these savage beasts. Oh. Bear Lord nodded in response. How does it feel to be guarding the gate here? Lu Yuan purposely asked. Don't even mention it. Basically, no soul beasts dare to come here, and I'm just a bear, so I'm very bored. I don't know which bastard suggested this to the master, but he actually sent me here to guard the gate. Someone of my status is actually doing the Sky Azure Bull Python's job. There was a hint of indignation in Bear Lord's voice, and he harbored deep resentment toward the person who had suggested this. Hearing that, Lu Yuan laughed inwardly. When Di Tian had Bear Lord guard the door, he had only said that it was Jiu Yuana who had asked him to guard the door. He hadn't mentioned Lu Yuan's opinion, so Bear Lord had no idea that it was Lu Yuan who had asked him to guard the door. On the other hand, Bear Lord's attitude toward Lu Yuan was very good after learning of Lu Yuan's true identity. Golden dragons were one of the most powerful dragons, and only the silver dragons could compare to them. Jiu Yuana and Lu Yuan's relationship was no secret. Bear Lord was foolish, Bear Lord, and he wouldn't do anything bad to Lu Yuan. Furthermore, Bear Lord wasn't just any foolish Bear Lord, he was also very smart. Oh, isn't it fun at all? Lu Yuan asked with a smile. It's a little fun. For example, not long ago, 3 90,000-year-old thousand Catiant emperors came here. They were very rude, and they tried to take over my territory. In the end, I killed one of them with 2 claws, and the other 2 fled. Those 3 stupid ants, they really think they're the boss now that the auras of the sky azure ball python and the titan giant ape have disappeared. They don't even take me seriously, do they? Do they really think that little python and that little monkey are worthy of being compared to me? Even the sky azure ball python and the titan giant ape don't dare to mess with those 3 stupid ants, yet they dare to mess with me? If I don't teach them a lesson, they won't know what pain is. After I casually slapped one of them to death, the other 2 quickly fled. Here, this is a soul bone dropped by that stupid ant. It's even a torso bone. I don't need it. Take it. Bear Lord pulled out an earthy yellow torso bone as he spoke before tossing it to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan hurriedly caught it. This torso bone was quite complete, and it was very old as well. It was over 90,000 years old, and it wasn't far away from reaching 100,000 years of age. As such, its value was most likely not inferior to that of the 100,000-year-old blue-silver emperor right leg bone. After all, even though the right leg bone was a 100,000-year soul bone, it was the least valuable of the 6 soul bones, while the torso bone in front of him was the most valuable of the 6 soul bones. Furthermore, it was more than 90,000 years old, close to a 100,000 years old soul bone, and it was in a relatively complete state. In terms of value, it really wasn't inferior to that of the blue-silver emperor right leg bone. Lu Yuan naturally wasn't going to turn down a treasure like this. Thank you, Bear Lord. Lu Yuan put away the 1,000 catty and emperor's torso bone. Regardless of whether he gave it to Hu Liana or Zhu Zhuqing, it would be very suitable. After all, torso bones weren't as clearly categorized as the 4 limbs, nor were they as clearly categorized as strength type and agility type soul bones. Torso bones were basically suitable for all soul masters. Just like skulls, as long as it was a skull, it would increase one's spiritual power. The only difference was that different skulls had different effects. Generally speaking, every soul master could absorb any piece of skull they wanted. It was the same for torso bones. As long as it was a torso bone, it would definitely increase one's constitution and defensive power. This was very effective for both Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing. Furthermore, this torso bone was over 90,000 years old, and it was close to 100,000 years old. Even if it wasn't suitable, it was still much stronger than ordinary 10,000-year-old torso bones. There's no need for that. It's useless to me, but it might be useful to you. You just have to remember to put in a good word for me in front of the master. Get me out of here as soon as possible. I've had enough of guarding this shitty place, the Bear Lord said. All right, I'll talk to Nao if I get the chance. Lu Yuan smiled and replied. Since the Bear Lord had given him a treasure like the 1,000-kilogram and emperor's torso bone, it wasn't impossible for him to put in a good word for it. He could transfer it away after the matter with the Clear Sky sect was over. However, Lu Yuan thought about the Clear Sky sect, and an idea popped into his head. Bear Lord, you have to guard this door well. I've heard that there's a sect called the Clear Sky sect in the human world. They've always wanted to come to the Great Star Do Forest to hunt 100,000-year soul beasts. They have a few titled Douluo, so you have to be careful. Don't let them barge into the core region. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have a good time. You have to know that there's a 100,000-year soft bone rabbit in the core region. If she's accidentally killed, you'll be held responsible, Lu Yuan said. Don't worry. With me guarding this door, it'll be fine. When those people from the Clear Sky sect come, I'll be able to kill them one by one. The Bear Lord patted his chest and spoke confidently. Chapter 457. Don't be careless. The Clear Sky sect has 6 titled Douluo, and one of them is a rank 96 transcendent Douluo. Furthermore, the Clear Sky sect's Clear Sky Hammer martial soul is quite powerful. Don't underestimate them. If something really happens, you'll be skinned alive. Even if we don't talk about that 100,000-year little rabbit, the Emperor Beast, the 3-eyed golden lion, is in the core region of the Great Star Do Forest. Nothing can happen to it. You should know how important it is. Lu Yuan said. The Bear Lord's huge paw paused when he heard this. Lu Yuan's words had shocked him. That's right. If the little rabbit dies, it doesn't matter much. However, if something happens to the Emperor Beast, it'll be a big deal. Even if I'm skinned alive, it'll be considered a light punishment. After all, the Emperor Beast was the destiny of the entire Great Douluo forest. If something went wrong, even Di Tian would kill him, let alone his master. The Bear Lord couldn't help but shiver as he thought until here. Lu Yuan was right. He really couldn't underestimate his opponent. It was better to hide and play to his old skills. If he saw a human titled Douluo, he would sneakily attack them as long as he didn't know them. After all, there weren't any good human soul masters. The Bear Lord thought to himself. Lu Yuan smiled as he watched the Bear Lord fall into deep thought. With Lu Yuan's reminder, the Bear Lord would be much more serious about guarding the gate in the future. If he saw a large group of soul cultivators coming to the gate, the Bear Lord would definitely strike first to gain the upper hand. When that happened, the Clear Sky sect would be unprepared. They would be attacked from behind by the Bear Lord's dark golden terror claws. Just thinking about that scene was a little exciting. Clear Sky sect, I hope you'll like this gift that I've prepared. After all, I've specially reminded the Bear Lord about this gift. I'm afraid that he'll forget. However, it's fine as long as you like it when you receive it. There's no need to thank me. After all, I'm someone who doesn't leave my name when I do good deeds. The corner of Lu Yuan's mouth curled into a smile. Bear Lord, you should know what to do now, right? Lu Yuan said with a smile. I understand. As long as it's a human soul master that I don't recognize, I'll kill them all. Thanks for the reminder, kid. Since you know what to do, I'm relieved. As for your transfer, I'll talk to Nea about it the next time I come. For now, you'd better stay in your post. Your responsibilities are not light. Lu Yuan clapped his hands and said, that's all for now. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. See you next time. With that, Lu Yuan walked toward the mixed zone. Ma Xiaodao quietly followed behind him. It was a long journey. 5 days had passed since Lu Yuan and Yang Xiaozhe left the Great Douluo forest. During these 5 days, Lu Yuan and Yang Xiaozhe had been hurrying along. However, the Great Douluo forest was really quite far from the martial Soul Palace. They weren't like Yang Xiaozhe, who traveled day and night. Therefore, they still hadn't reached the city after 5 days. In midair, Ma Xiaodao condensed a pair of flaming wings behind her back and asked Lu Yuan, little brother, how far are we from the martial Soul Palace? Not far. We'll be there soon, Lu Yuan said softly as he flapped his wings. You said the same thing 2 days ago. In the end, we've traveled for 2 more days, but there's still no trace of the martial Soul Palace. Ma Xiaodao said with a hint of complaint. So you're going to say that you're tired from flying and want to rest, eat something good, and take a leisurely stroll around before continuing? Lu Yuan asked. Thinking about Ma Xiaotao's personality, Lu Yuan felt a little helpless. They were hurrying along, not sightseeing. This woman would always say that she was going to eat, but after eating, she would always take a stroll around before continuing. If she hadn't delayed them, they would have been able to travel even further. Hehe, little brother, you're really smart. As expected of the Lord. I'm really hungry now. Why don't we go down and eat something first? I promise I won't wander around this time. Ma Xiaodao said with a serious face. Are you really hungry? Lu Yuan asked. I'm hungry. My stomach is flat from hunger. If you don't believe me, you can see for yourself. Ma Xiaodao touched her stomach and said with an aggrieved expression. If you're hungry, then eat some dry food. I have some in my star ring. If you want to eat, I'll get it for you. Lu Yuan said indifferently without looking at Ma Xiaotao's exaggerated and aggrieved expression. But the dry food is too dry. I don't want to eat it. Ma Xiaodao said. If you don't want to eat, then you can starve. Lu Yuan said indifferently. He flapped his golden dragon wings and sped up again. Hey, little brother master, fly slower. Seeing that Lu Yuan's figure had flown far away, Ma Xiaodao flapped her fiery red phoenix wings and chased after him. She muttered, You heartless stinky little brother. You're not in a hurry. Why are you in such a hurry? However, what she didn't know was that Lu Yuan hadn't seen Chihiro Snow and the others for a year. He missed them dearly. It could be said that he was anxious to return home. Under such circumstances, how could he not be in a hurry? He didn't travel day and night. This was already considered for Ma Xiaotao's sake. If he was alone, he would use the night to hurry along. In the sky, 2 streams of light, one gold and one red, flashed past and flew quickly in the direction of the Martial Soul Palace. 2 days later, outside the Martial Soul City, looking at the tall city, Lu Yuan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. After 7 days of trekking, he finally returned to the Martial Soul City. Is this the Martial Soul City? It looks spectacular. Beside Lu Yuan, Ma Xiaodao looked at the tall Martial Soul City and couldn't help but exclaim. Of course. This is the capital city of the Martial Soul Palace. It's the most prosperous capital city in the entire continent. How can it not be spectacular? Lu Yuan said indifferently. Well, it looks pretty good from the outside. I wonder how it's like inside. Ma Xiaodao said. Let's go in and take a look. Lu Yuan said and walked into the Martial Soul City. Little brother, wait for me. Ma Xiaodao shouted and quickly chased after Lu Yuan. As soon as Lu Yuan entered the city, he was discovered by Bibidon's spies. Immediately, the news of Lu Yuan's return to the city was sent to the Pope's palace. Of course, this was also because Lu Yuan didn't hide his figure. Otherwise, it would be difficult for these spies to discover his whereabouts. Little brother, someone is watching us. With Ma Xiaotao's strength, she naturally discovered that someone was secretly watching them. They are teacher's men. I think the news of my return has already reached teacher. Let's go, Sister Xiaodao. Come with me to the Pope's palace to meet teacher, Lu Yuan said softly. Chapter 458. Within the Pontiff Palace, Bibidon sat high up on the Pontiff's throne. Her lips were slightly curled up, and there was an unconcealable smile on her beautiful face. Just a moment ago, she had received news that her precious disciple had returned to Martial Soul City. Bibidon, who hadn't seen him for over a year, couldn't help but feel a trace of joy in her heart. Over a year has passed, and I wonder how Abuchi is doing. Has he become more handsome and mature? Bibidon thought to herself. Send someone to summon Chihiro Snow, Hulena, and Jujuqing, Bibidon said softly as she sat on the Pontiff's throne. A year had already passed, and these 3 girls had probably missed their precious disciple to the point that they couldn't stop thinking about her. Even Qian Renxue, who had been hiding in Heaven Do, took the time to rush back to the Martial Spirit Hall when the 1-year period was about to end. Wasn't it just to see Lu Yuan? Now that Lu Yuan had returned, it was time for the 3 of them to see him. Yes, Your Holiness. Douluo nodded gently, then went to instruct the paladins. Moments later, Chihiro Snow, Hulena, and Jujuqing walked into the Pontiff Palace one after another. Teacher, why have you called us here? Hulena's voice sounded as soon as they entered the Pontiff Palace. Chihiro Snow and Jujuqing didn't say anything. Jujuqing was afraid of Bibidon, and she wasn't very close to him. Furthermore, she had a quiet and shy personality, so under normal circumstances, she wouldn't take the initiative to speak. Chihiro Snow looked at Bibidon calmly, and there was a hint of stubbornness in her eyes. She still had some resentment toward Bibidon in her heart. Even though Lu Yuan had helped her out in the past, the hatred that had been hidden in her heart for so many years couldn't be erased so easily. Therefore, it was unrealistic to expect her to greet Bibidon first. She was already giving Bibidon face by allowing him to enter the Pope's palace. Looking at the 3 women below, Bibidon's gaze swept over them and finally stopped on Hulena. He smiled and said, I have good news for you. What good news? Hulena asked, could it be that there's news about junior brother? Hulena's face was filled with anticipation. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow and Jujuqing couldn't help but look at Bibidon. Yes. According to our scouts, Abuchi has already entered Martial Spirit City today. It won't be long before he returns to the Pontiff's palace. Bibidon said. As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the three women burst out with a strong light at the same time, and a trace of joy couldn't help but surge onto their pretty faces. Teacher, are you serious? Junior brother is back. Helena's eyes widened, and her pretty face was filled with a smile. It seemed that her whole person had become more energetic in an instant. It's true. He's rushing towards the pontiff's palace, Bibidon said with a light smile. Is that so? That's great. Helena murmured softly, her eyes slightly red. Stinky junior brother, it's been a year, and you're finally back. Do you know how much I miss you? Abuchi is back. A ripple flashed across Chen Renshue's watery golden eyes. Her gaze softened and her eyes were filled with affection. You're finally back. Zhu Zhuqing's jade-like hand gently touched her chest, and her big eyes sparkled. After waiting for a year, he was finally back. Looking at the excited faces of the three women below, Bibidon couldn't help but smile. Sure enough, his precious disciple's charm was great. At this moment, a palace guard suddenly ran into the main hall, knelt on one knee, and reported loudly, "Reporting to your holiness, young Master Yuan requests an audience." "Let him in," Bibidon said softly. "Yes, your holiness." The palace guard responded and retreated. After a while, Lu Yuan, dressed in white, stepped into the main hall, and behind him was Ma Xiaodao, dressed in red. "Teacher, I'm back." Lu Yuan bowed to Bibidon as soon as he entered the main hall. "Yen, it's good that you're back." Bibidon nodded gently with a smile on his face. Looking at the still handsome but mature precious disciple in front of him, Bibidon secretly nodded. This disciple of his was really becoming more and more outstanding, and he couldn't help but feel proud in his heart. "Junior brother." Lu Yuan bowed, and just as he stood up, a fragrant wind suddenly blew over, and a soft and delicate body directly rushed into his embrace. Helena's hands were tightly wrapped around Lu Yuan's neck, and her pair of white legs were tightly wrapped around Lu Yuan's body like an octopus. Her beautiful and flirtatious fox-like eyes were filled with tears. She stared blankly at Lu Yuan, and tears flowed down her cheeks. "Senior sister." Looking at the lovely person in his embrace, Lu Yuan couldn't help but reach out his hands and tightly hug her waist, calling out softly, "Junior brother, senior sister missed you so much. After hearing that something happened to you, I was so worried about you. Fortunately, you finally came back safely." Helena looked straight at Lu Yuan, and her eyes were filled with deep affection. "Senior sister, it's been hard on you this year." Looking at Helena's tear-stained face, Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh, and his tone carried a trace of gentleness. He could imagine that this year, Helena definitely didn't feel good. After all, she was someone who would miss even if she left him for a moment. What's more, in this 1 year, Helena must have missed him deeply. "It's not hard, as long as you come back safely," senior sister is satisfied. "Junior brother, do you know? Seeing you today, senior sister is very happy." Helena suddenly grinned. Her smile was very hearty, but when paired with her tear-stained face, there was an indescribable strangeness. Seeing this, Lu Yuan smiled. His left hand hugged Helena's waist, and his right hand pulled out, and used his sleeve to wipe away the tears on Helena's face. Lu Yuan's movements were very gentle. Feeling the gentleness in Lu Yuan's hand, Helena closed her eyes comfortably, and a look of enjoyment appeared on her face. After wiping away the tears, Helena's bright and beautiful face was completely revealed, and she looked much more beautiful. Gently pinching Helena's cheeks, Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Senior sister, come down first. Zhuqing and Cher are still watching." "Oh, I know." She pouted unwillingly. She hadn't hugged him enough. However, thinking that Zhuqing and Chihiro Snow hadn't seen junior brother for a year, perhaps they were as anxious as she was. Therefore, Helena reluctantly let go of Lu Yuan's arms. "Let them be close for now, anyway, junior brother must be mine tonight," Helena secretly thought. Chapter 459. Good girl. Seeing Helena get down from his body, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile. He rubbed Helena's head. Sure enough, senior sister was still so obedient and well-behaved. He looked at Zhu Zhuqing, who was at the side. This girl was also looking at him with a pair of big eyes. She didn't even blink. Her pair of lively big eyes were sparkling. Zhuqing. Smiling at Zhu Zhuqing, Lu Yuan opened his arms. Suddenly, Zhu Zhuqing was like a little swallow returning to its nest. She directly entered Lu Yuan's arms. Gently stroking Zhu Zhuqing's beautiful black hair and feeling her delicate body trembling in his arms, Lu Yuan couldn't help but gently pat her back. His heart was full of love. This girl who had abandoned everything to follow him. Over the past year, she had probably been worried and scared a lot. Zhu Zhuqing greedily sucked on Lu Yuan's breath. It had been a year. She hadn't seen Lu Yuan for a year. Over the past year, her heart had been empty. Without Lu Yuan, it was as if her heart was missing a corner. That kind of empty feeling was really unbearable. However, at this moment, leaning in Lu Yuan's arms, Zhu Zhuqing only felt exceptionally satisfied. That kind of familiar hug that she hadn't felt in a long time calmed her originally fearful heart down. Her entire heart felt as if it had been filled with something and became full. Zhuqing. Lu Yuan called out softly. Lu Yuan, don't leave me again in the future. Don't make me worry again. This year has been so painful for me. Zhu Zhuqing's slightly cold voice rang out. Her voice carried a trace of fear. This year, she had really struggled in pain. She missed him, but she was also worried. Although Lu Yuan had sent a letter back, Zhu Zhuqing still couldn't help but worry when she hadn't seen Lu Yuan for a day. Lu Yuan was her everything now. Lu Yuan's every move could tug at her heartstrings. Hearing Zhu Zhuqing's soft words, Lu Yuan nodded and said in a gentle voice, "Don't worry, Zhuqing. I won't make you worry again in the future. I promise." "Okay." Zhu Zhuqing nodded and once again burrowed into Lu Yuan's arms, enjoying that rare peace of mind. A moment later, Zhu Zhuqing left Lu Yuan's arms. Her eyes glanced at Chihiro Snow and her red lips slightly opened. Her voice was calm. "Go." "Okay." Gently stroking Zhu Zhuqing's long hair, Lu Yuan revealed a trace of a smile. Sure enough, Zhu Zhuqing was still sensible and reasonable. In this aspect, she was better than Helena. If it had been Helena just now, she would have definitely taken the opportunity to hug him for a longer time. This senior sister of his, when in front of him, would only think of being close to him. Basically, it was very difficult for her to care about others. Unless Lu Yuan reminded her, it would be very difficult for her to react. However, Lu Yuan didn't mind this. In fact, he was a little happy. This was a display of Helena's love for him. Share. Lu Yuan softly called out as he gently walked to Chihiro Snow. After not seeing each other for a year, Chihiro Snow had become a lot more haggard. Even her figure had become a lot thinner. Seeing this, Lu Yuan's heart secretly ached. In the past, Chihiro Snow was valiant, spirited, and not inferior to men. However, the current Chihiro Snow always had a trace of sadness between her eyebrows. There was often a trace of sadness in her eyes. When she looked at Lu Yuan, her eyes were filled with deep guilt. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow's red lips slightly opened. Her pair of golden eyes stared closely at Lu Yuan, as if she was afraid that he would suddenly disappear again. Share. Lu Yuan took 2 steps forward and gently pulled Chihiro Snow into his arms. He lowered his head slightly and looked at Chihiro Snow's slightly pale face. Lu Yuan couldn't help but feel pain in his heart. He reached out and stroked Chihiro Snow's cheek. His tone was filled with pity. "Share, you've lost a lot of weight." Abuchi. Staring at Lu Yuan's pitiful eyes, Chihiro Snow's heart trembled. The tears that she had been holding back for a long time could no longer be controlled and instantly gushed out. Chihiro Snow lay on Lu Yuan's shoulder. The tears that flowed from her eyes completely wet Lu Yuan's white clothes. Share. Lu Yuan sighed softly. "Abuchi, it's all my fault. It's all because of my stubbornness that you were seriously injured and on the verge of death in order to save me. If I had listened to you back then and retreated, nothing would have happened. It's all my fault for not listening to you. It's all my fault for acting rashly. If it weren't for me, You wouldn't have been in this situation, Chihiro Snow said loudly. Her tone was filled with deep regret and guilt. The fact that Lu Yuan was seriously injured and on the verge of death in order to save her had already become a knot in Chihiro Snow's heart. Don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault. Lu Yuan gently patted Chihiro Snow's back and said with a smile. If this isn't her fault, who else can it be? After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Helena immediately became emotional. If she hadn't insisted on investigating, how would she have met that evil transcendent Douluo? How would you have been seriously injured and on the verge of death in order to save her? She can't shirk her responsibility for what happened to you. Senior sister. After hearing this, Lu Yuan furrowed his brow and glanced at Helena. Did I say anything wrong? Seeing the harsh look in Lu Yuan's eyes, Helena didn't back down. Junior brother, just spoil her. You've already spoiled her, but you're still spoiling her. This time, you were seriously injured and on the verge of death. What if there's a next time? Junior brother, even if you spoil her, there should be a limit, right? Have you ever thought about Zhu Qing and me? You were lucky this time, and you managed to survive. But if something really happens to you next time, what will Zhu Qing and I do? Even if you love Chihiro Snow the most, you should still consider us. Junior brother, you're too biased. Faced with Lu Yuan's harsh look, Helena unleashed all the resentment that she had accumulated for a long time. She didn't back down as she stared at Lu Yuan. Her eyes were filled with stubbornness. Zhu Qing's eyes flickered when she heard this. She had to admit that Helena's words were exactly what she was thinking. It was just that she didn't have the courage to say it out loud. However, she didn't expect Helena, who had always been submissive and obedient, to unleash all her resentment towards Chihiro Snow and Lu Yuan. When did she become so bold? Senior sister. Seeing the stubbornness in Helena's eyes, Lu Yuan couldn't help but be a little stunned. After knowing Helena for so long, this was the first time she had faced him so unyieldingly. It seemed like she had been suppressing her resentment for more than a day or two. It seemed like the incident that had happened to him was the fuse that caused her resentment to erupt. Chapter 460. Looking at Helena's appearance, Lu Yuan couldn't help but secretly think, did he really spoil Chihiro Snow too much? Even Helena, who had always been temperamental, burst out with such strong emotions this time. Zhu Qing, do you think so too? Lu Yuan looked at Zhu Qing. Zhu Qing was the most sensible. If even she said so, then maybe he really spoiled her too much. Facing Lu Yuan's eyes, Zhu Qing hesitated, but in the end, she nodded affirmatively. Lu Yuan's preference for Chihiro Snow, as long as one was a person, they could feel it. It was completely different from how he treated her and Helena. In fact, junior brother, you have already noticed it in your heart, but you are unwilling to admit it. At this moment, Helena's voice faintly sounded. The things that Lu Yuan was doing now, basically, had the shadow of Chihiro Snow in it. Whether it was the establishment of the Dragon King Palace or the establishment of the Heavenly Star Academy, they all had the intention of helping Chihiro Snow. It was not a problem to say that Lu Yuan favored Chihiro Snow the most among his 4 girlfriends. Although he wanted to be impartial, after all, the human heart was made of flesh and could be swayed by feelings. When a pair of hands stretched out, the fingers had different lengths, let alone the human heart. It was undoubtedly difficult to be impartial to everyone. Because Lu Yuan had many girlfriends, he had always felt guilty towards Chihiro Snow in his heart. Under such circumstances, it was understandable that he spoiled her, tolerated her, and sometimes even indulged her. However, in the long run, such indulgence was not a good thing after all. Fortunately, the current Chihiro Snow was not the original Chihiro Snow. Senior sister, Lu Yuan opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Helena. Junior brother, I can understand that you dote on Qian Renxue because you love her the most. However, please know your limits when you dote on her. Don't encourage her to become arrogant and unreasonable. I'm not angry because you dote on her, but because your doting on her has brought danger to yourself. I don't mind that your love for me is less than Chihiro Snow. I just hope that you can be safe, do you know? Junior brother. Hu Lena's beautiful eyes stared straight at Lu Yuan, her eyes were incomparably sincere, and that rich love seemed to be able to melt Lu Yuan's whole body. Looking at Hu Lena's eyes, Lu Yuan's heart was slightly warmed. When it came to feelings for him, Hu Lena was the one who had the deepest feelings for him. Gently patting Chihiro Snow's back in his arms, Lu Yuan was slightly stunned. Hu Lena's words really woke him up, and at the same time, these words also woke Chihiro Snow up. Abuchi, Chihiro Snow said softly, lifting her head from Lu Yuan's shoulder. Her face was tear-stained, and her pair of beautiful eyes were still red and swollen. This made Chihiro Snow, who was originally full of heroic spirit, reveal a rare trace of weakness. Share. Gently caressing Chihiro Snow's little face, Lu Yuan affectionately called out. Hu Lena's words are reasonable. In the past, I was too arrogant and too stubborn. Almost every time, you had to accommodate me. In the future, I won't. From now on, I will listen to everything you say. Your share will listen to everything you say. Chihiro Snow's eyes were hazy with tears, but her tone was unprecedentedly firm. She didn't ask for anything else, as long as this man was still by her side, that was enough. No matter whether he was a womanizer or not, as long as he liked, she would support him without hesitation behind his back. This was the most sincere thought in Chihiro Snow's heart right now. Only the heavens knew how she had spent the past year. Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing suffered a lot, but she suffered even more than they did. Especially the guilt and condemnation in her heart, which almost made her collapse. If it wasn't for Lu Yuan's timely letter, Chihiro Snow would have been unable to hold on. From that moment on, she began to tell herself that in this life, other than Lu Yuan, other things were not important to her. What martial soul palace, the glory of the angel clan, they were all far inferior to the man in front of her. As long as he was by her side, as long as he loved her deeply, then she could give up everything. Share. When had Lu Yuan seen Chihiro Snow like this? His heart had long been shocked beyond words, and following that, he was happy and moved. Chihiro Snow's change was all for him. Lu Yuan's heart moved slightly, and he hugged Chihiro Snow tightly in his arms. Little Yuan, Qian Renxue murmured softly. Her tone was low and carried a strong sense of longing and affection. Share. Lu Yuan called out softly. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he said, "What do you think about the matter between me and Na?" Lu Yuan's tone carried a trace of probing. After all, Chihiro Snow's change was too great, and it was too sudden. This made him feel a little uncomfortable, so he wanted to test him a little. Moreover, although Lu Yuan had already mentioned Jiyu Yuana's matter in the letter, Lu Yuan was still a little uncertain about Chihiro Snow's opinion. "Na, are you talking about Jiyu Yuana?" Chihiro Snow asked. Yes, it's her. Share, what do you think? Lu Yuan asked. I have no opinion, as long as you like her. Moreover, she is very beautiful, and she is indeed worthy of you. Chihiro Snow said softly. Among Lu Yuan's women, she was the only one who had seen Jiyu Yuana. Chihiro Snow also knew about Jiyu Yuana's amazing appearance. In terms of the exquisite appearance, she was not inferior to her. On the contrary, the mysterious and noble temperament on her body was even above her. Although she was unwilling to admit it in her heart, the reality was the reality. The current Jiyu Yuana was slightly more charming than her. Perhaps in the future, when she grew up, she would be comparable to her. Chihiro Snow didn't have a good impression of Jiyu Yuana. After all, she also noticed that this Jiyu Yuana had bad thoughts about her, and seemed to want to attack her. However, since Lu Yuan liked this Jiyu Yuana, and this Jiyu Yuana saved Lu Yuan's life, she naturally had no opinion. In her heart, now Lu Yuan was the most important. Share. Looking at Chihiro Snow so easily agreed to Jiyu Yuana's matter, Lu Yuan's eyes were full of surprise. He didn't expect that Chihiro Snow's change was actually real. The originally domineering and jealous Shui had actually become so magnanimous and reasonable. It seemed that the incident had a huge impact on Shui as well. It actually caused such a huge change in her mentality. However, thinking about it carefully, This was not a bad thing. At least now Chihiro Snow looked more likable, and she had more of the temperament of a woman. Chihiro Snow had become like this today. Lu Yuan didn't have to worry about his harem being set on fire. This made him couldn't help but feel relieved. Chapter 461. Looking at Lu Yuan and Qian Renxue hugging each other tightly, Ma Xiaodao, who was standing not far away, couldn't help but curl her lips. She really couldn't tell that her lord's little brother was quite powerful. He could still stand firmly on 4 boats. She had to admit that he did have some ability. Should she say that he was indeed her little brother? Moreover, her lord's younger brother's eyesight was really good. Each and every one of them was a great beauty. Moreover, all of them had very good figures. His eyes were really sharp. However, was it really appropriate for them to be hugging each other like this in such a solemn place like the Pontiff's palace? With that in mind, Ma Xiaodao couldn't help but look at Bibidon, who was sitting high up on the Pontiff's throne. Bibidon looked at Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow hugging each other tightly, and a dark expression appeared on his face. Even though there were no outsiders here, and the chrysanthemum Douluo and ghost Douluo had watched him grow up, it wasn't appropriate for them to be so intimate in front of so many people. Just a while was enough. How long had they been hugging each other? Bibidon couldn't bear to watch any longer. Ahem, that's enough. It won't be too late for the two of you to be intimate when we get back, Bibidon said softly as he looked at Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow. Lu Yuan gently released Chihiro Snow upon hearing this. Chihiro Snow blushed slightly. This was the first time that she had been so intimate with Lu Yuan in public. Even though she was stubborn, she wasn't as thick-skinned as Lu Yuan. She immediately stood beside Lu Yuan and lowered her head silently, but her hands were still tightly gripping onto Lu Yuan's arm. They hadn't seen each other for a year, and she missed Lu Yuan too much. Even though she was a little shy, she still didn't want to let go of Lu Yuan. This must be the bright phoenix Douluo's disciple, right? Bibidon asked as he turned to look at Ma Xiaodao, who was standing to the side. Yes, teacher. This is Uncle Yang's disciple, Ma Xiaodao. Her martial soul is a super martial soul, the Fire Phoenix. She's 30 years old this year, but she's already reached rank 95. She's undoubtedly a top genius, Lu Yuan said with a smile. With Ma Xiaotao's talent, she would definitely be able to topple the world of fighting one. Even Tang Hao, who was known as the youngest titled Douluo, was already 44 years old when he became a titled Douluo. Even so, he still managed to shock the entire world of soul masters. Heaven Do Imperial Academy's Qin Ming, who was at rank 62 at the age of 30, was praised as the second youngest soul emperor. He could make a comparison here. One was 30 years old and at level 62. One of them was at level 95 at 30 years old. Qin Ming was really not even fit to carry shoes in front of Ma Xiaodao. Lu Yuan could predict what kind of commotion would occur when Ma Xiaotao's age and abilities were revealed. Indeed, as expected, after Lu Yuan revealed Ma Xiaotao's abilities, everyone present sucked in a cold breath. They looked at Ma Xiaodao with astonishment in their eyes. This was especially so for the chrysanthemum Douluo and the ghost Douluo. Their eyes were even filled with astonishment. This little girl who was not even 30 years old had already caught up to them in terms of soul power. Furthermore, her super martial soul, the Fire Phoenix, was of the ultimate fire element. A soul master like this could not be judged by common sense. If she really fought, even the chrysanthemum Douluo and the ghost Douluo might not be able to defeat her. In the entire martial soul palace, only Sendriu, Bibidon, and the golden crocodile could defeat Ma Xiaodao. In fact, it would be impossible for the golden crocodile to win easily. After all, Ma Xiaodao had a 100,000-year soul ring. A 100,000-year soul ring was basically a legend in the Fighting One era. There were very few people who had a 100,000-year soul ring, and those who did were all top-tier existences. Indeed, she's very talented. Bibidon looked at Ma Xiaodao with a tinge of astonishment in her eyes. Her talent was probably not inferior to hers. She was probably even qualified to become a god. Abuchi, you really have some capable people under you. Bibidon sighed softly as she looked at Lu Yuan. None of the 3 titled Douluo who had appeared under Lu Yuan were simple. Long Xiaoyaro was an ultimate Douluo. There was no need to mention him. Yang Shaojia's martial soul was the Radiant Phoenix. He was a rank 97 transcendent Douluo, and was very strong. He wasn't much weaker than the Golden Crocodile. After all, he also had a 100,000-year soul ring. He was the dean of Shrek Academy's martial soul department, and the dragon god Douluo Mu Ien's personal disciple. How could he be simple? Furthermore, there was Ma Xiaodao, who had reached rank 95 before the age of 30, and possessed an ultimate fire martial soul. Lu Yuan's subordinates weren't weak at all. He didn't know where his disciple had found so many capable people. However, Bibidon didn't intend to probe further. His disciple had always been mysterious. As long as she was on his side, it was enough. There was no need to probe further. Bibidon had been in charge of the Martial Soul Palace for so many years. Naturally, she had her own set of wisdom. Lu Yuan smiled in response to Bibidon's compliment. He didn't reply. His Dragon King Palace wasn't weak now. It had 4 titled Douluo. However, it was still a little inferior to the Holy Hall and the Pontiff's Palace. It wasn't time for him to be arrogant and complacent. By the way, teacher, there's something I need to report to you. Lu Yuan's mind turned as he remembered something important. Are you talking about those evil soul masters? Bibidon asked. Yes, teacher. The evil soul masters that Cher and I met in the dense fog forest were all from the Holy Ghost Church. Holy Ghost Church? Bibidon furrowed her brow. She had never heard of this name before. Ever since Chihiro Snow returned, she had been a little absent-minded because of Lu Yuan. Apart from briefing Bibidon about what she had encountered in the dense fog forest, she hadn't revealed any information about the Holy Ghost Church. Furthermore, Chihiro Snow didn't know much about the Holy Ghost Church. Therefore, Bibidon didn't know much about the Holy Ghost Church. The Holy Ghost Church is a church formed by evil soul masters. They are very powerful. They have 4 emperors, 2 emperors, a church leader, and 8 protectors. The 8 protectors are all titled Douluo. The 4 emperors are all transcendent Douluo above rank 96. As for the 2 emperors, they should be peak stage Douluo. As for the church leader, he should be an ultimate Douluo. The Holy Ghost Church is definitely a great enemy of the Martial Soul Palace. Therefore, we can't let our guard down. We have to strengthen our defenses. Lu Yuan said with a serious expression. Bibidon furrowed her brow when she heard this. The Holy Ghost Church, which she had never heard of, was actually so powerful. Chapter 462. Abuchi, how much do you know about the Holy Ghost Church? Tell us everything, Bibidon said softly as she blinked her beautiful eyes. I do know a little. The Holy Ghost Church isn't a local religion on the Douluo continent. They come from another continent, Lu Yuan said. Another continent? Everyone was astonished when they heard this. There was a doubtful look in their eyes. Yes, on the western coast of the Douluo continent, there's another continent across the vast ocean. This continent is called the Sun-Moon continent, and the Holy Ghost Church is the native religion of the Sun-Moon continent. Furthermore, it's the national religion of the Sun-Moon continent. The Holy Ghost Church has been rooted in the Sun-Moon continent for many years. They're very powerful. Their status on the Sun-Moon continent isn't much lower than our Martial Soul Palace's status on the Douluo continent. Their members are basically all evil soul masters. Evil soul masters are a very strange existence. They have all sorts of tricks up their sleeves, but they are undoubtedly very vicious. It's very difficult for a normal soul master to win against an evil soul master of the same rank, because the fighting strength of an evil soul master is very strong. Just like the evil soul Douluo that we met this time. They are very strong. The 3 of them were able to hold back the snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo. If they were ordinary soul Douluo, 3 of them might not be able to hold back one of them, let alone 2 titled Douluo. That's why we can't underestimate evil soul masters. They're an existence that's on the same level as our Martial Soul Palace. The Clear Sky sect and the Seven Treasures glazed sect can't compare to them. We have to be very cautious against them. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, the faces of Bibi Dong and the others could not help but become solemn. An opponent with such strength was indeed worthy of being treated seriously. Furthermore, their martial soul palace's goal was to unify the entire continent. They couldn't let anything that could ruin their plan go. The Holy Ghost Church was undoubtedly worthy of their vigilance. According to what you've said, there should be 2 Soul Douluo from the Holy Ghost Church who managed to escape. They've either crossed the ocean and returned to the Sun-Moon continent, or they're still hiding on the continent. If they're really planning to invade the Douluo continent, it's very likely that the Holy Ghost Church has colluded with the remaining evil soul masters on the Douluo continent. Bibidon said with a solemn expression. Teacher, you're right. These members of the Holy Ghost Church crossed the ocean to the Douluo continent in order to prepare for the Holy Ghost Church's invasion of the Douluo continent. They built the Blood Moon altar and killed so many soul beasts as sacrifices so that they could open a spatial door and bring those evil soul masters over. When the time comes, they'll work together with the remaining evil soul masters on the Douluo continent. Perhaps they'll really cause great damage to the Martial Soul Palace, or even the 2 empires. Right now, the order that the Martial Soul Palace has painstakingly established might completely collapse. That's why I hope that you can send someone to keep an eye on these evil soul masters. As for the Dragon King's palace, I'll use my own abilities to find out where these evil soul masters are. It's best to get rid of these rats hiding in the dark as soon as possible. Lu Yuan said clearly. Yes, you're right. I'll pay attention to this. I'll give orders to the branch halls to keep an eye on the evil soul masters. If there's any movement, they'll report it to me immediately. Bibidon said softly. After hearing this, Lu Yuan nodded silently. Although the Holy Ghost Church was powerful, they were separated by the vast ocean. As long as the Martial Soul Palace took proper precautions and made proper preparations, it wouldn't be easy for those evil soul masters to cause any trouble. After all, the Martial Soul Palace was spread across the entire continent. It wasn't just for show. Bibidon couldn't help but nod as he looked at his outstanding disciple. Right now, Lu Yuan already had the aura of a leader. Furthermore, he was very thoughtful. It seemed like that matter could be pushed up the agenda. Abuchi. Bibidon called out softly. Do you have any instructions for me, teacher? Lu Yuan asked. I don't have any instructions. Seeing that you are travel-worn, you must have rushed all the way back. I don't have anything else to do here. You can go back to the island in the middle of the lake first, freshen up, and accompany your girlfriends. Teacher has something to discuss with the elders for the time being. Bibi Dong said softly. All right, teacher. I'll take my leave then. After hearing Bibidon's words, a trace of doubt flashed across Lu Yuan's eyes. Could there be something important other than the Holy Ghost Church? He actually needed to discuss it with the elders, and the most important thing was that Bibi Dong didn't seem to want him to know about it. This made Lu Yuan a little apprehensive. What is Bibidon trying to do? With some doubts in his heart, Lu Yuan still chose to take his leave. Since Bibidon didn't want him to know, there was no need for him to probe further. He would naturally know what he needed to know when the time came. There was no need for him to be troubled now. All right, go. Bibidon nodded slightly. After seeing this, Lu Yuan grabbed Chihiro Snow's hand and turned around to leave the pontiff's palace. Behind them, Hulena and the rest of the girls hurriedly followed. Junior brother, wait for me. Hulena took 2 steps forward and grabbed Lu Yuan's remaining left hand, then hugged it tightly in her arms. Junior brother, senior sister was a little rude just now. You won't be angry, right? Hulena looked at Lu Yuan with a pair of big eyes, blinking with a pitiful expression on her face. Seeing Hulena's appearance, Lu Yuan couldn't help but laugh. Just a moment ago, she had a valiant and high-spirited look, and now, she was pretending to be pitiful. This woman is really a drama queen. However, Lu Yuan naturally wouldn't be angry with her in his heart. Instead, he was a little touched. This girl really threw her heart on him, and what he gave her was far from enough. If you don't want me to be angry, You better go back and wash yourself clean. Tonight, let me see your sincerity. Looking at Hu Liena, the corners of Lu Yuan's mouth curled up slightly as he said with a smile. Hearing Lu Yuan's bold words, even with Hu Liena's enthusiasm and openness, she couldn't help but blush slightly, but she didn't refuse. Instead, she was looking forward to it. It's been a year, and she really wants to. But what did junior brother mean just now? Isn't he going back to the Lake Heart Island now? Chapter 463. Junior brother, don't tell me you're not going back to the Lake Heart Island with us? Hu Liena asked. Yes, I'm going to the Angel Temple with Cher first. I haven't been back for so long, and with the matter of the Holy Spirit Church, I'm going to see that old man Sendriu. Lu Yuan said with a faint smile. Abuchi, what are you talking about? That's my grandfather. Seeing Lu Yuan directly call Sendriu old man, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but hit him, her tone carrying a trace of reproach. All right, then I'll call him Great Consecrator, Lu Yuan said helplessly. You should call him grandfather like I do. Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes looked straight at Lu Yuan. Her gaze was very serious, making Lu Yuan unable to resist for a moment. All right, call him grandfather then. For your sake, I'll let that old man bask in some glory. Facing Chihiro Snow's gaze, Lu Yuan sighed and said. Seeing Lu Yuan's unwilling appearance, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but curl her lips. This guy's opinion of his grandfather wasn't small. However, as long as he was willing to call him grandfather, Chihiro Snow would be satisfied. Senior sister, Cher and I are going to the Angel Temple now. You and Zhu Qing should take Sister Xiaodao back to the Lake Heart Island first. While you're at it, arrange a room for Sister Xiaodao and prepare daily necessities. Lu Yuan said. Little brother master, I'll go with you to the Angel Temple. Teacher instructed me to stay close to you and protect you. Ma Xiaodao said. No need, Sister Xiaodao. You go with the senior sisters first. This is the Martial Soul Palace, my headquarters. What danger can there be? Furthermore, the Angel Temple isn't a place where outsiders are allowed to enter. Ma Xiaodao said softly. All right then. Seeing Lu Yuan's firm attitude and the fact that this was the Martial Soul Palace, there was indeed no danger, so Ma Xiaodao agreed with Lu Yuan's decision. Senior sister. Lu Yuan moved his head closer to Hu Liena's ear, lowered his voice, and said, remember to leave the door open for me tonight. If you perform well tonight, I will reward you. What reward? Hu Liena asked curiously. It's a very precious reward. You'll definitely love it. Really? Hu Liena's eyes widened. Of course, do I need to lie to you? Lu Yuan said with a chuckle. No. Hu Liena shook her head. Do you want this reward? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. Hu Liena nodded. Since you want to, why are you still here? Why don't you hurry back and prepare? Lu Yuan said. Oh, okay. I'll go back right away. With that, Hu Liena pecked Lu Yuan's face and hurriedly pulled Zhu Qing and Ma Xiaodao back to the island in the middle of the lake. Seeing her anxious look, Lu Yuan couldn't help but shake his head and smile. This little fox was really adorable. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow's pleasant voice sounded in Lu Yuan's ear. What's wrong, Cher? Lu Yuan couldn't help but turn his head to look at Chihiro Snow beside him. You're quite good at dealing with this, Hu Liena. Chihiro Snow said. Hehe, senior sister is actually very easy to get along with. She's also very obedient and has a good heart. As for what she said in the Pope's palace, she didn't have any malicious intentions. Cher, don't take it to heart. Lu Yuan said. I didn't take it to heart. What she said actually makes sense. I did push you too hard before, and I was a little willful and reckless. But from now on, I won't do that again. I'll be as obedient as Hu Liena and the others. No matter what you do, I'll support you. Chihiro Snow said softly. Seeing the completely different gentle Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh and say, Cher, it's actually very good for you to change your willfulness and forcefulness. But you don't have to be as obedient to me as senior sister. Your personalities are different, and there's no need to forcefully change your personality for me. Even Zhuqing sometimes throws a tantrum at me. This is actually quite good. If you're always obedient to me and listen to everything I say, you won't be the same Xiao Shui that I used to like. Furthermore, my personality has become more and more arrogant under the influence of my martial soul. Sometimes, I'll even act recklessly. I might not necessarily not make any mistakes in the future, so I need someone to control me and not let me make any big mistakes. In this world, the only person who can control me is you. Even teacher can't do that, because you're the most special in my heart. So, you really don't have to listen to everything I say. You just have to be yourself and be a good wife. If I really do something wrong, you should control me and scold me. You don't have to deliberately make yourself suffer and indulge me. We're equal, and you also need to have your own personality. Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow with an unprecedentedly serious expression. Being obedient was very good, but this kind of personality wasn't suitable for Chihiro Snow. For Chihiro Snow, it was fine as long as she changed her willfulness and forcefulness. It was fine as long as she didn't force him to answer everything. As for the rest, there was really no need for that. Looking at the sincere Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but cry again. This time, she was really touched by Lu Yuan's love. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but throw herself into Lu Yuan's arms and hug him tightly. Okay, don't cry. You're the dignified Chihiro Snow, the future angel god. How can you cry so casually? The Cher I know is valiant and heroic. She's not inferior to men. She won't cry all the time. Lu Yuan gently patted Chihiro Snow's head and said with a smile. Okay, I won't cry anymore. Chihiro Snow raised her head and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with her right hand. That's right. Lu Yuan gently wiped away the remaining tears on Chihiro Snow's face and smiled as he held Chihiro Snow's jade hand. Let's go and see that old man Sendryu. I said, you have to call him Grandpa. Chihiro Snow's slightly reproachful voice sounded, and she couldn't help but hit Lu Yuan again. Hihi, I like to call him old man. At most, I'll call him old man in private. When we meet, I'll call him Grandpa. Lu Yuan laughed. Rascal, I really don't know what to do with you. Seeing Lu Yuan like this, Chihiro Snow helplessly shook her head. As long as this guy is willing to call him Grandpa when they meet, it's enough. In private, it's actually not that important. Hehe, Cher, do you think your grandpa will urge us to have a baby when he sees us this time? Lu Yuan said with a smile. I'm afraid it's very likely. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but nod. With her grandpa's personality, this kind of thing is really likely to happen. Chapter 464. Angel Temple. A huge angel statue stood tall, and an indescribable divine majesty spread out in all directions from the statue. Sendryu was dressed in white, with his hands behind his back, and his eyes fixed on the angel statue in front of him. Shui is now over rank 60, and her martial soul has evolved into an 8-winged angel. It's time to start the final inheritance. With Shui's talent, she should be able to trigger the 9 test. Sendryu muttered to himself, it should have started a year ago, but that kid never came back, so Cher was always restless and couldn't concentrate. Fortunately, that kid finally came back today, so it's time for the final step to be carried out. There was a trace of anticipation in Thousand Douluo's voice, as well as a trace of melancholy. I hope that the goal that our angel clan has been working towards for 10,000 years can be seen on Shui. The glory of angels will definitely shine on the entire continent. Sendryu's face carried a trace of longing. This was the most noble goal in his heart, and the greatest wish of his life. Ta-ta-ta. A series of footsteps sounded, and Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow walked into the angel temple hand in hand. Hearing the footsteps behind him, Sendryu turned around, with a gentle smile on his face. You're here? Grandpa. Chihiro Snow called softly. Greet him. Chihiro Snow gently squeezed Lu Yuan's hand, and gave him an urging look. Grandpa. Seeing Chihiro Snow's urging look, Lu Yuan could only open his mouth and call Sendryu Grandpa. Forget it, Just treat it as giving face to Chihiro Snow. Hearing the way the two addressed each other, the smile on Sendryu's face became even wider. His gaze first swept over Chihiro Snow, with a trace of kindness and care. Sendryu naturally doted on his only granddaughter. His gaze turned slightly, and glanced at Lu Yuan, who was at the side. He sized him up for a while, and said, "Kid, you're finally willing to come back. Do you know how much Schwerer has missed you this past year? She didn't eat or drink because of you, and she lost a lot of weight and became much more haggard. This old man's heart ached when I saw that. You brat, you actually stayed with another woman for a year and didn't come back. Do you still care about Cher?" Sendryu stared straight at Lu Yuan with a trace of questioning. "Grandpa, this has nothing to do with Abuchi. Abuchi had no choice. Furthermore, if it weren't for me, Abuchi wouldn't have been so severely injured by evil soul masters, and he wouldn't have been left behind for a year. This is all my fault, and it has nothing to do with Abuchi." Faced with Sendryu's questioning, Lu Yuan didn't say anything, but Chihiro Snow couldn't wait to help Lu Yuan explain. Sigh. Seeing how nervous Chihiro Snow was, Sendryu couldn't help but sigh softly. His granddaughter's heart is really all for this kid. Abuchi, Cher has such feelings for you. Don't let her down. Otherwise, this old man won't let you off. With Chihiro Snow stopping him, Sendryu naturally couldn't continue to question him. He could only warn his grandson-in-law as a grandfather. What? They're not married yet, so I can't call him grandson-in-law? They've already slept together, so what's the point of marriage? Furthermore, with his granddaughter's current state, how can she escape from this kid's clutches? She's already been devoured by him. Even as a grandfather, he could only accept his fate when faced with such a situation. Furthermore, this kid is indeed very outstanding, and is indeed worthy of Xiao Shui. Grandpa, don't worry. Cher is the most important person in my heart. I naturally won't let her down. To me, she's more important than my life. Lu Yuan had a serious look on his face as he spoke. That's more like it. Sendryu still believed in Lu Yuan's promise. Everything else aside, didn't this kid sacrifice himself to save Cher during the trip to the fog forest a year ago? He was still very good to Cher, so he could rest assured that he'd leave Cher in his care. As for what he'd said just now, he just couldn't help but remind him out of his love for his granddaughter as a grandfather. Judging from the aura on your body, you seem to have reached level 57? Sendryu looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of amazement in his eyes. To reach level 57 at the age of 14, his talent was even higher than Shui-Er's. As expected of someone who had obtained the inheritance of the Supreme God. If the Martial Soul Palace wanted to flourish in the future, it would really have to rely on him and Cher. I reached level 57 by luck. Lu Yuan met Sendryu's gaze and nodded. He couldn't hide something of this level, and there was no need to hide it. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but look at Lu Yuan with a hint of astonishment in her eyes. Although she knew that Lu Yuan had already become a Soul King, she didn't know that Lu Yuan had reached level 57 in just a year. Is this guy's cultivation speed that fast? Not bad. Your talent is truly rare in this world. Even this old man is far inferior to you at your age. Sendryu sighed softly, and there was a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Sendryu was actually very happy that such a prodigy belonged to the Martial Soul Palace, and he was even his grandson-in-law. Oh yes, you're here to tell me something, right? Sendryu asked. Yes, it's about those evil soul masters. After that, Lu Yuan told Sendryu about the Holy Ghost Church that he had told Bibidon earlier. I see. Don't worry, I'll get the consecrators in the consecration hall to fully cooperate with Bibidon on this matter. I guess that's why you're here, right? Sendryu asked with a smile. Yes, the Holy Ghost Church is the Martial Soul Palace's greatest enemy. Against such an enemy, we have to be united first. We can't have any internal cracks. Otherwise, we won't be able to unleash our full strength because of these cracks when we face them. This will be very disadvantageous for the overall situation, Lu Yuan said. Yes, you're right. Evil soul masters are the Martial Soul Palace's natural enemies. When we face evil soul masters, I'll get them to put aside their differences with the pontiff's palace. Everything will be done according to Bibidan's instructions. After all, she's a pope, and she's very capable and resourceful, Sendriu said after pondering for a moment. Although he still had a grudge against Bibidon for killing his son, the martial soul palace's interests were more important than anything else. Evil soul masters and six-winged angels were mortal enemies, and they had to be eradicated. He was willing to put aside his prejudice on this matter and support Bibidon. After all, in Sendriu's eyes, the martial soul palace was the most important. Chapter 465. Furthermore, the future consecration hall would naturally be handed over to Chihiro Snow, while the pontiff's palace would be inherited by Lu Yuan. The future pontiff of the martial soul palace would definitely be either one of them. No matter which one of them became the pontiff, the other would definitely do his best to support him. The strength of the consecration hall and the pontiff's palace would eventually merge. Even if Lu Yuan became the pontiff, the position of pontiff would still be passed down to his child when he and Xiao Shui had a child in the future. This meant that the position of pontiff would still fall into the hands of the Qian family, the angels. So what if they supported Bibidon now? In the end, the entire martial soul palace would still return to the Qian family. They would definitely not lose out on this deal. Qian Dao Liu, this old man's calculations were not bad. Old people were shrewd. Thank you, grandfather. Lu Yuan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Sendriu had agreed to his request. The Holy Ghost Church was not like the Clear Sky sect. They were very difficult to deal with. Lu Yuan did not want the pontiff's palace and the consecration hall to waste time arguing with each other when evil soul masters were in danger. This was not something he wanted to see. What he wanted was a united martial soul palace. When the pontiff's palace and the consecration hall's strength merged, it would definitely be a terrifying force. It's nothing. It's all for the martial soul palace. Sendriu smiled and said, "It's good that you're here today. I have something very important for Xiao Shui to do. Since you're here, Abuchi, let's go up and give it a try." Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow looked at each other when they heard this. They could see a trace of doubt in each other's eyes. Something important. What was this important thing that he was referring to? Sendriu took a few steps forward and stopped in front of the huge angel statue. "Snowy, Abuchi, come here." Looking at the huge angel statue, Lu Yuan's face flashed with a hint of understanding. Could the important thing be? Shui, you're already at rank 66, and your martial soul has evolved into an unprecedented 8-winged angel. You're the most talented among all the angels, and you've finally matured to the point where you can take the angel test. Take 2 steps forward and see what kind of test you can trigger, Sendriu said softly. As expected. After listening to Sendriu's words, Lu Yuan secretly nodded in his heart. His guess was right. Cher was about to start taking the 9 angels test. However, this time was more than 5 years earlier than in the original work. But thinking about it, Cher's growth had obviously sped up with his arrival. Even her martial soul had evolved. It was normal for her to take the test in advance. Once the test began, Cher's strength might soar rapidly. The 9 angels test. Cher is now on the path to becoming a god, so it's time for me to start working hard. It's just that it's been a few years, and my understanding of the clear air divine seed is still very shallow. Even now, I can only use a small portion of the clear air divine power. There's still a long way to go if I want to create my own godhood. Looking at Chihiro Snow in front of him, Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh softly. It was time for him to speed up his growth. Otherwise, if he were to be left behind by Shuer again, it would not look good on him. He was a man, how could he be weaker than his woman? Jiu Yuana had no choice. He couldn't be left behind by Chihiro Snow again. Qian Renshue took 2 steps forward. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light radiated from the angel statue. A faintly discernible chanting could be heard. A divine aura filled the entire angel temple. In front of the statue, a screen of light appeared in the air. It was a brilliant golden color, and it seemed so noble and holy. The sacred golden light enveloped Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow's 8-winged angel martial soul automatically attached itself to her body without any control. 4 pairs of pure white wings gently stretched out behind her back. It was a holy and pure sight. At this moment, the bright golden light screen suddenly trembled, and then it instantly began to give birth to another light screen. In just a few moments, 6 light curtains were formed. The 7th. Under Sendryu's gaze, the 7th screen of light appeared without pause. The 8th. After the 7th screen of light appeared, the 8th screen of light also appeared. After the 8th screen of light appeared, Sendryu's eyes widened. Whether or not he succeeded depended on this final moment. Lu Yuan's gaze focused slightly, and he sized up the golden screen of light. His heart was very calm. He had full confidence in Chihiro Snow. Come on, the 9th test. Lu Yuan couldn't help but secretly shout. Finally, under the gazes of the two, the dense golden light converged, and the 9th golden curtain of light finally appeared. At the same time the 9th curtain of light appeared, a dazzling golden light directly broke through the barrier of the angel temple, rushing straight into the clouds. The divine might of an angel was released without restraint. At the same time, Bibidon, who was in the middle of a meeting in the Pope's palace, suddenly trembled. A cold light flashed through her eyes, and in the depths of her eyes, there was a darkness that seemed to be able to devour souls. What a disgusting aura. Bibidon slightly frowned, but soon after, she seemed to have thought of something. Did Cher trigger the 9 tests of angels? Bibidon secretly thought, and a trace of hesitation appeared on her face. The cold light in her eyes gradually faded away, and was replaced by a dense complexity. 9 screens of light appeared together, emitting a divine and resplendent radiance. In the next moment, the 9 screens of light shattered, and turned into a stream of light, directly entering between Chihiro Snow's eyebrows. The golden light faded away, and a golden 6-winged angel brand appeared between Chihiro Snow's eyebrows. Its appearance was exactly the same as that of the huge angel statue. The 9 tests of angels. Seeing the angel brand between Chihiro Snow's eyebrows, Sendryu's face instantly became wild with joy. Sure enough, the person that their angel race had been waiting for 10,000 years was his granddaughter. His granddaughter was destined to be the one who would spread the glory of angels across the whole continent. The 9 tests of angels. A trace of a smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face. He wasn't surprised by this result at all. In the original work, Chihiro Snow could pass the 9 tests, let alone now that Chihiro Snow had been strengthened in all aspects. The 9 tests of angels. Chihiro Snow's red lips slightly opened, and a trace of joy appeared on her face. As the possessor of the 6-winged angel martial soul, she naturally knew what the 9 tests of angels represented. This meant that as long as she passed the 9 tests, she would be able to completely fuse with the angel god armor and become the new 6-winged angel god. How could she not be happy in her heart? Moreover, with the 9 tests of angels, she would be able to better follow in Ibuchi's footsteps. Chihiro Snow turned her head to look at Lu Yuan, and smiled, her watery golden eyes faintly rippling. Chapter 466. Facing Chihiro Snow's watery golden eyes, Lu Yuan smiled slightly, his eyes filled with gentleness. Congratulations, Cher. You've taken the most important step to becoming a god, Lu Yuan said softly. You'll have this day sooner or later. Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes were fixed on Lu Yuan, her eyes filled with tenderness. She was able to successfully take the angel's 9 trials. Ibuchi's talent was much stronger than hers. Wouldn't taking the trial be a piece of cake for him? Other things aside, he had the heart of the sea god in his hands. This was an important item for the inheritance of the sea god. It was just that this guy had high standards and didn't care for the position of the sea god. In addition, he had a god's seed with him. In the future, he could create his own god's position. Chihiro Snow was extremely confident in Lu Yuan. This confidence came from the bottom of her heart. She firmly believed that this man would one day rule this continent. Not to mention other things, just this guy's 3 martial spirits, one stronger than the other. Triplet martial spirits, perhaps this should be an unprecedented talent in history. The golden dragon was already comparable to her 8-winged angel. The power of his polychoria was even more shocking. The most shocking thing was the pitch-black long spear that was flickering with blood-red light. It emitted an aura that was above the heavens and the earth. The endless murderous and ferocious aura caused Chen Runshue's heart to tremble. If that spear hadn't missed, the Blood Emperor would have died on the spot. According to Ibuchi, that spear was called the God-slaying spear. It lived up to its name. When Ibuchi grew to a certain extent, perhaps this spear could really kill a god. Therefore, perhaps only by taking the angel's 9 trials could she barely ensure that she could keep up with Ibuchi's footsteps and not be left too far behind. She wanted to be able to help Ibuchi in the future. She didn't want to hide behind and watch Ibuchi struggle alone. Chihiro Snow stared at Lu Yuan and thought to himself. Cough cough. Seeing the two sweetly looking at each other, Sendryu couldn't help but cough. This was the Angel Temple, a sacred and dignified place. If the two of them wanted to be intimate, they could go back, but not here. Sendryu's eyes were still filled with surprise. He looked at Chihiro Snow with a burning gaze, as if he wanted to melt him. His granddaughter had indeed obtained one of the 9 angel trials. How could he not be excited? However, Sendryu was a transcendent Douluo, after all. His mental state wasn't bad, and his eyes regained their calm after a brief moment. Although Shuera had obtained the 9 tests, it wasn't that easy to pass them. As her grandfather, he still needed to help Shuera from the side. Now, it was time to see what kind of test Ibuchi could get. It should be impossible for him to pass the 9 tests. After all, the 9 tests could only be triggered by those with the angel martial soul. Now that Cher had passed the 9th test, Ibuchi should be the same as him, who had passed the 7th test. Sendryu thought to himself. Ibuchi, come up and give it a try. Sendryu said. Ibuchi, go ahead. Chihiro Snow smiled and said gently. En. Lu Yuan nodded and walked step by step towards the angel statue, but there was a hint of worry in his eyes. There were many secrets in his sea of consciousness. When the angel god sent down the test, would it discover anything? System, can you block everything in my sea of consciousness? Lu Yuan asked. Lu Yuan thought that since the system was so mysterious, it should be able to block his sea of consciousness and prevent the angel god's divine power from entering. Blocking the entire sea of consciousness is not advisable. That will leave a flaw. The host can block things in the sea of consciousness. However, with the host's current power, you can only block one thing. The system's voice sounded. Then block the god-slaying spear for me. The clear air spirit seed is a divine power with no attributes. Since even the god of life and the god of destruction can't discover it, the angel god definitely can't either. As for the sea god's heart, that thing is related to the sea god and not the angel god, so it shouldn't be a big deal. As for the golden dragon's martial soul, there's no need to block it. But system, you should be able to block the god-slaying spear, right? Lu Yuan asked. Yes, the system said. Ding, the god-slaying spear has been blocked. The god-slaying spear's power is now completely restrained. As long as the host doesn't actively activate it, it will be like an ordinary martial soul. The angel god's divine power won't discover the secrets of the god-slaying spear and will only think that it is the host's second martial soul. The system's cold voice sounded. Is that so? So you only blocked the god-slaying spear's power. I thought you hid the entire god-slaying spear. But that's enough. To a god, even if it's a twin martial soul, it shouldn't be a big deal. Knowing that the system had completely blocked the god-slaying spear's power, Lu Yuan relaxed a lot. This martial soul was too strong. It was too dangerous to expose it in the eyes of a god. When the sea god's shadow discovered the god-slaying spear's power, it wanted to contact the main body and send the news to the Heavenly Realms Committee. But this idiot provoked the god-slaying spear and was locked on by the murderous aura. Plus, the clear air spirit seed had blocked his sea of consciousness. That was why he was killed by the god-slaying spear. Lu Yuan thought to himself. He slowly walked forward and stopped in front of the angel statue. Lu Yuan stood still. The rich golden light scattered again. But unlike Chihiro Snow, there was no bright golden light screen this time. Instead, a pure golden light came from the huge holy sword in the angel statue's hand and entered Lu Yuan's forehead. The light flashed, and a pure golden holy sword imprint appeared. What kind of test is this? Looking at the holy sword imprint on Lu Yuan's forehead, Sendryu was a little stunned. If it was a top test, shouldn't it be red? Just like him, it was a red imprint. But now, what did this holy sword imprint mean? He expressed that he didn't understand. This is the 9 tests of holy sword, Lu Yuan said softly as he felt the information in his mind. 9 tests of holy sword? There's such a test. Sendryu's eyes widened. He had served the angel god for so many years, but he had never heard of such a test. Even Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with some confusion. 9 tests of holy sword? She seemed to have never heard of such a test. Yes, the 9 tests of holy sword. Lu Yuan sighed softly. He looked at Chihiro Snow, who was not far away. His eyes flashed. The reason he got this so-called 9 tests of holy sword was because of Cher. Abuchi, why are you looking at me like that? Seeing Lu Yuan's gaze on him, Chihiro Snow was a little puzzled. Chapter 467. Because I got this assessment because of you, Lu Yuan said with a faint smile. Because of me? Chihiro Snow's eyes widened in confusion. What does Abuchi getting the 9 holy sword examinations have to do with me? Yes, it's because of you, Lu Yuan said. What do you mean? Sendryu couldn't help but ask. In fact, my 9 holy sword examinations, to put it bluntly, exists for Cher. The holy sword is the weapon of the angel and represents endless battles. The angel god gave me this 9 holy sword examinations in the hope that I can protect Cher and clear the obstacles ahead for Cher, just like the holy sword. In other words, I have to protect Cher. This is the so-called 9 holy sword examinations. It's to bring the relationship between Cher and me closer. Perhaps the angel god is looking for a power to protect his inheritor, and I have a close relationship with Cher and my talent is good, so he gave me this assessment. Lu Yuan said with a smile. To be honest, Lu Yuan was also surprised to get this assessment. The angel god values his inheritor too much. He forcibly arranged such an assessment for him, just like finding a babysitter for Chihiro Snow. Lu Yuan was very clear about the angel god's idea. He wanted his inheritor to have an extra protective power to ensure that she would not die halfway. The reason why he gave Lu Yuan the 9 holy sword examinations was because Lu Yuan's talent was too high and his future achievements were destined to be extraordinary. He wanted Lu Yuan to better protect Chihiro Snow. This made Lu Yuan feel a little funny. This angel god is really interesting. According to Lu Yuan's speculation, his assessment is probably linked to Chihiro Snow's assessment. Otherwise, it wouldn't be such a coincidence that it's the 9 holy sword examinations. It's like this. Sendryu couldn't help but widen his eyes and look at the huge angel statue with a trace of surprise in his eyes. How much did the angel god want to pass on the position of god? Not only did he have his grandfather, who was an oracle, to assist him, but he also forcefully arranged the 9 sacred sword examinations for Lu Yuan. Wasn't it obvious that he wanted Cher to inherit the position of angel god? However, Sendryu liked this kind of angelic goddess-sama, because didn't this mean that Cher's chances of becoming a god were higher? This was good news. Looking at the happy Sendryu, Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. This old man is still thinking about the glory of the angel. These oracles were indeed fanatical believers. However, thinking of his first assessment, the corner of Lu Yuan's mouth twitched slightly. He found it hard to imagine that his first assessment was like this. However, looking at Chihiro Snow not far away, his brows trembled. He always felt that Chihiro Snow's assessment might be similar to his. Cher, what was your first assessment? Lu Yuan asked. First assessment. Chihiro Snow was puzzled, then closed her beautiful eyes slightly, feeling the content of the angel assessment in her mind, and her face was slightly red. The first assessment of the angel, the blessing of the holy sword, close contact with the inheritor of the 9 sacred sword examinations, And Chihiro Snow's voice was getting smaller and smaller until it was inaudible. And what? Lu Yuan couldn't help but have a smile on his face. When he heard Chihiro Snow's words, he reacted in an instant. Chihiro Snow's assessment was exactly the same as his. You know clearly, and you still ask me? Chihiro Snow couldn't help but glare at Lu Yuan. This assessment obviously requires the two of them. How could this guy not know? Hee hee. Lu Yuan chuckled, took 2 steps forward, and directly pulled Chihiro Snow into his arms, and kissed her red lips. The first assessment of the Holy Sword, close contact with the inheritor of the angel, and kiss for half an hour. This was the information Lu Yuan received for the first assessment. Lu Yuan was even a little puzzled. Why would the angel god set up such an assessment? He and Chihiro Snow had done more intimate things, so what was a kiss? Woo! Chihiro Snow's red lips were kissed by Lu Yuan, and her whole body seemed to have lost all strength. She lay in Lu Yuan's arms, and let him take advantage of her. Just like Lu Yuan said, she and Lu Yuan had done more intimate things, so a kiss was nothing. However, Sendryu was still here, and this was her most respected grandfather. Chihiro Snow was still a little shy to kiss Lu Yuan in front of her grandfather. Moreover, half an hour of kissing seemed a little long. Looking at the two hugging and kissing, Sendryu's mouth twitched slightly. Just a moment ago, he also received a message from the angel god. What he didn't expect was the so-called first assessment to be something like this. Is this still the assessment given by the angel god who shines holy light all over the continent? Isn't this too childish? Sendryu thought in his heart. Half an hour wasn't a long time, and it passed very quickly. A voice sounded in Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow's minds almost at the same time. The first assessment of the Holy Sword has been completed. Rewards: 500 years of increase in the age of all soul rings, 15% increase in the compatibility of the 8-winged angel martial soul, and 45% increase in the compatibility of the existing martial soul. 500 years of increase in the age of all soul rings, 15% increase in the compatibility of the 8-winged angel martial soul? Hearing the voice in his mind, Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly. An increase in the age of soul rings was a normal reward. Although it was only 500 years, it was better than nothing. However, the 15% increase in the compatibility of the 8-winged angel martial soul was a little interesting. If the compatibility between martial souls was more than 50%, there was a very high possibility of martial soul fusion skills. And his and Chihiro Snow's martial soul compatibility had already reached 45%, which was not far from 50%. Needless to say, the remaining 30% was brought about by the clear energy. His Golden Dragon martial soul and Chihiro Snow's 8-winged angel martial soul had both been soaked in the clear energy, so it was normal for them to have 30% compatibility. And once there was a martial soul fusion skill, needless to say, the relationship between him and Chihiro Snow would be even closer. After all, martial soul fusion skills were usually used by lovers or brothers, and all of them were extremely close. Could it be that the angel god made this so-called first assessment, making him and Chihiro Snow kiss in public, just to increase the compatibility of his and Chihiro Snow's martial souls? Let the two of them create a martial soul fusion skill? Lu Yuan thought to himself and felt that it was very possible. After all, it was already 45%. If it increased a little later, he and Chihiro Snow would very likely have a martial soul fusion skill. How powerful would the martial soul fusion skill of the Golden Dragon and the 6-winged angel be? In fact, Lu Yuan was also very curious. Chapter 468. One was the Golden Dragon with the ultimate strength and the strongest physical body, while the other was the 8-winged angel, a god-ranked martial soul with the power of holy, light, and fire. Once these two were combined, how powerful would it be? It was really exciting. Share, what's your reward? Lu Yuan asked. My angel affinity has increased by 5%, and my compatibility with the Golden Dragon martial soul has increased by 15%. My compatibility with the Golden Dragon martial soul is currently at 45%, Chen Renshue softly replied to Lu Yuan's question. Abuchi, martial soul compatibility, could it be? Chihiro Snow's face had a trace of surprise as he looked at Lu Yuan. It should be to create a martial soul fusion skill for us. When this 15% reward came out, I felt a faint holy power in my body. Perhaps, this is the reason for our 15% compatibility increase. Lu Yuan said softly. The angel god naturally didn't have the power of the golden dragon, but he had the holy power. He could increase Lu Yuan's martial soul by increasing the holy power in Lu Yuan's martial soul to push Lu Yuan's martial soul and Chihiro Snow's martial soul closer. This was the reason for the so-called increase in compatibility. Create a martial soul fusion skill? Chihiro Snow's eyes lit up. If he could have a martial soul fusion skill with Abuchi, it should be a very good thing. Actually, the angel god's reward reminded me that there are only 3 methods to increase the compatibility between our martial souls. What 3 methods? Chihiro Snow asked curiously. First, inject the holy power of the angel into my golden dragon martial soul, just like what the angel god did just now. Second, inject more holy power into your 8-winged angel martial soul. This can also increase the compatibility. What about the third method? Her beautiful eyes blinked as she carefully observed Lu Yuan. The corners of Lu Yuan's mouth curled into a devilish smile as he looked at Chihiro Snow and said softly, as for the third method, that is to further communicate with each other. The more we communicate, the closer our relationship will become, and the better our tacit understanding will be. Ah, you're so bad. Qian Renshua blushed when she heard Lu Yuan say such things. She hit Lu Yuan with her jade-like hand. Her grandfather was still here. Chihiro Snow thought and tilted his head slightly, but he didn't see Sendryu. Stop looking. That old man has already left. Lu Yuan's indifferent voice sounded. When did you leave? Why didn't I notice it? Chihiro Snow said. Of course you didn't notice. You were in a daze at that time. What could you have noticed? Lu Yuan giggled. Bah, you're still talking about it. Hearing Lu Yuan teasing him like this, Chihiro Snow immediately became angry. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he pounced on Lu Yuan. Hey, are you walking right into a trap? Lu Yuan caught Chihiro Snow and pulled him into his arms with his right hand. Lu Yuan's current strength was so great that Chihiro Snow couldn't move at all. Seeing that he couldn't break free, Chihiro Snow stopped struggling. He only looked at Lu Yuan with a pair of golden eyes. Being stared at like this, Lu Yuan naturally didn't feel embarrassed. He smiled and whispered into Chihiro Snow's ear, remember to wash yourself clean tonight, okay? I'll be there when the time comes. The hot air hit Chihiro Snow's ear and dyed it red. Pervert. Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan. Yes, I'm lusting after your body. I've been lusting after your body for a long time. It's not like you don't know. Lu Yuan said with a chuckle. Rascal. Seeing Lu Yuan say such words, Chihiro Snow suddenly had no choice. After all, he didn't even care about his face. What could you do to him? Didn't you ask Hulena to go back and wash herself clean? Why are you dragging me in? Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan. You already asked Hulena to prepare, why are you dragging me in? Do you think that with my strength, senior sister can deal with me alone? Lu Yuan smiled, and his smile was particularly bright. Looking at Lu Yuan's smile, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but roll his eyes. And this guy is indeed right. Whether it's me or Hulena, if one person, maybe they can't deal with this guy at all. But the two of them together, this guy was dreaming too much. Oh, yes, Cher, you don't have any objections, right? Then it's settled. You will go back to Lake Heart Island with me later. Lu Yuan said. Hearing that this guy didn't even ask her and directly made the decision, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but feel angry and amused. But since she said that she would no longer be willful and would try to listen to him, then she would turn a blind eye to this kind of thing. She wouldn't agree or disagree. After all, that kind of thing was also what she should do as a Butch's woman. Just to let her go back to Lake Heart Island with him? That's Bibidan's territory. Chihiro Snow still had some resistance in her heart. Abuchi, can we not go to Lake Heart Island? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a trace of pleading in her beautiful eyes. Her face looked delicate and pitiful, which really made one's heart ache. Of course. I can't. Lu Yuan directly chose to refuse under Chihiro Snow's expectant gaze. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow's tone became gentle with a trace of coquettishness. Let's not go to Lake Heart Island, okay? No, we have to go. This is non-negotiable. Lu Yuan once again rejected Chihiro Snow's request. The relationship between Bibidon and Chihiro Snow was still too stiff. This kind of relationship still needed to be eased. It was undoubtedly difficult to get Bibidon to take the initiative. However, Lu Yuan could bring Chihiro Snow over. At the very least, Bibidon's love for Chihiro Snow was real. Both of them were people that Lu Yuan cared about. Lu Yuan also did not want their relationship to continue to be so bad. That was not what he wanted to see. One clearly cared about her daughter, while the other craved motherly love. However, they just had to act like enemies. They loathed each other and resented each other. This relationship between mother and daughter was really a headache. This damned Chihiro disease. All the trouble was caused by this guy. If he was still alive, Lu Yuan would definitely skin him alive. What a troublemaker. However, Chihiro disease was already dead. It was useless to curse him. He could not possibly dig up his grave and then whip his corpse, right? That might not be good. Other things aside, if he really did that, Chihiro Snow would definitely fall out with him. What he could do now was to do his best to improve their relationship. Even if they could not return to their normal mother-daughter relationship, at the very least, they should not hate each other anymore. Chapter 469. Hushin Pavilion. On the stone table, 5 people sat together and were having dinner. The atmosphere at the table was a bit strange, especially when Chihiro Snow and Bibidon were sitting opposite each other. Juliana held her bowl and didn't say a word. Zhu Zhuqing lowered her head and ate her meal quietly. Although Chihiro Snow was unwilling, he was pulled to Hushin Island under the strong request of Lu Yuan. After all, when Lu Yuan was serious, even Chihiro Snow could only be obedient. Moreover, Lu Yuan really wanted to ease the relationship between the mother and daughter. Perhaps it was not something that could be explained in a few words, but after living together for a long time and seeing each other frequently, their relationship would definitely improve. Teacher, please eat. Lu Yuan smiled slightly, picked up the chopsticks and put it in Bibidon's bowl. En. Bibidon nodded gently. Her face was calm, but there was a trace of complexity in her eyes. With her intelligence, how could she not see Lu Yuan's intention? It was to improve the relationship between her and Chihiro Snow, but she was helpless because there was a knot in her heart. Every time she saw Chihiro Snow, she would think of the beast in human face, and the disgust in her heart would arise spontaneously. How could she not know that Chihiro Snow was innocent? She also cared for Chihiro Snow in her heart. After all, he was her flesh and blood. She could not really not care at all, but she really could not get over the barrier in her heart. That was the nightmare of her life, and she could not forget it at all. Share, you also eat some food. Lu Yuan also picked up some food with his chopsticks and put it in Chihiro Snow's bowl. Chihiro Snow had been in a daze ever since she came to the table. Her heart was also very complicated. She wanted her mother's love, but she also hated Bibidon from the bottom of her heart. She had infiltrated the Heaven Do Empire in order to overthrow the Heaven Do Empire. On one hand, it was for the sake of the martial Soul Palace. On the other hand, wasn't it to prove herself to Bibidon? Chihiro Snow had a stubborn personality. She wanted to be recognized by her mother, Bibidon, but she was not willing to lower herself to please her. She did not even want to see Bibidon. If it was not for Lu Yuan, she might not have sat at the same table as Bibidon in this lifetime. Share. Lu Yuan patted Chihiro Snow's shoulder. His gaze was gentle, and there was a warm smile on his face. Looking at the gentle smile on Lu Yuan's face, Chihiro Snow thought of his good intentions. She sighed and picked up her chopsticks to eat. No matter what Bibidon thought, she was a Butch's woman. Abuchi cared for her so much. She couldn't embarrass him. Moreover, she did have a trace of desire to reconcile with Bibidon in her heart. Putting everything else aside, she had already made her stance. Her willingness to come to the island in the middle of the lake meant that she had already lowered her head. The rest was up to Bibidon. Looking at Chen Renshua's actions, Lu Yuan could not help but secretly nod his head. No matter what, Shue'er's personality had changed a lot after returning this time. She had become more obedient, less arrogant and willful, and more gentle and considerate. Although the stubbornness in her bones was still there, Lu Yuan didn't care. If even this bit of stubbornness wasn't there, then Chihiro Snow wouldn't be Chihiro Snow. Looking at Bibidon, then looking at Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan suddenly smiled. His face was brimming with happiness and happiness. "Junior, what are you smiling about?" Helena asked, puzzled. "Nothing, I'm just happy to be able to eat with Cher and teacher at the same table. This is the first time since I joined the Martial Soul Palace," Lu Yuan said softly. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow and Bibidon couldn't help but raise their heads at the same time. Their eyes met, and then they instantly looked away. A trace of complex emotions flashed through their eyes. After the meal, the dishes on the stone table had already been removed. A few cups of tea were placed on the table. The freshly brewed tea was steaming hot, with a faint mist rising from it. Taking a sip of the tea, Lu Yuan said gently, "Teacher, I have some matters to discuss with you in private." "Oh." Hearing this, Bibidon raised her beautiful eyes and glanced at Lu Yuan. Then she said softly, "Okay, then come to my place to talk." Saying this, Bibidon stood up. "You guys chat, I'll leave first. Abuchi, come over later." "Okay, teacher, take care," Lu Yuan said. After Bibidon left, the atmosphere in the pavilion immediately changed. The oppressive feeling instantly disappeared without a trace. Helena let out a deep breath. Her jade-like hand patted her chest. That strange atmosphere just now really made her feel uncomfortable. Originally, when she was with her junior, she had a lot to say. However, in that atmosphere just now, she didn't dare to say a single word. Zhu Zhuqing was the same. Bibidon and Chihiro Snow's aura was too strong. Other than Lu Yuan, who was calm and composed, she and Helena were trembling. Now that Bibidon left, she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. "Abuchi, you're going to look for her later. Is there something you want to talk about?" Chihiro Snow raised his head slightly and looked at Lu Yuan. Could it be that Abuchi went to look for Bibidon because of him? "Well, there are some important things to talk about." Gently rubbing Chihiro Snow's head, Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Cher, you stay on the island in the middle of the lake tonight. For the time being, you can sleep with Zhuqing. Tomorrow, I'll get someone to tidy up your room. You can stay here in the future. Abuchi, you're not allowed to refuse. It's settled." Without giving Chihiro Snow a chance to refuse, Lu Yuan directly made the decision. "Zhuqing, take Cher to your room later," Lu Yuan said to Zhu Zhuqing. "Okay." Zhu Zhuqing nodded and then asked, "What about you? Where are you sleeping tonight?" "Of course, I'm going back to my room to sleep." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Go back to your room to sleep." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Helena's eyes flashed. Isn't Lu Yuan's room her room? After all, their rooms were together. Thinking of this, Helena's eyes couldn't help but curve into a crescent moon. "Well, that's it for the time being. I'll go to the teacher first. If there's anything, we'll talk about it tomorrow," Lu Yuan said and turned to walk outside. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's footsteps paused and said, "Right, I've been away for a year. I don't know how your strength is progressing. Tomorrow, I'll test your strength to see how much you've improved. Don't think about running. Zhuqing, senior sister, and Cher, none of you can run away. If I find that you haven't improved tomorrow, hey, then you'll suffer. I'll punish you guys well." Lu Yuan smiled faintly, and there was a trace of inexplicable emotion in his tone. Chapter 470. In a somewhat antique room, Bibidon's figure appeared. She was sitting in front of the table, holding a document in her hand. This was some information from the Martial Spirit Branch Hall below. Bibidon was a very skilled person, and she was also quite diligent in government affairs. She usually liked to flip through these documents after eating and when she had nothing to do. Hearing the footsteps outside the door, Bibidon's beautiful eyes that were looking at the document paused, and her red lips opened slightly. "Is it Abuchi? Come in." "Teacher." A series of footsteps sounded, and Lu Yuan's figure appeared. He bowed to Bibidon. Bibidon put down the document and looked at the tall and straight figure in front of her. His face was handsome, and his temperament was like an immortal. There was almost no flaw to be found, and there was a strong sense of pride in her heart. This was her, Bibidon's, disciple. A disciple that she had nurtured single-handedly. He was fully deserving of being a dragon among men. Whether it was talent, strength, or appearance, this disciple in front of her was so satisfactory. "Come and sit, Abuchi." Bibidon smiled sweetly, and her beautiful smile seemed to sprinkle the bright spring light. At this moment, she really had an indescribable beauty. Even with Lu Yuan's composure, he couldn't help but be a little dazzled. As expected of the person who could give birth to such a peerless figure like Cher, Bibidon herself was also a great beauty that could topple the world. "Yes, teacher." Lu Yuan responded and sat down on the chair next to Bibidon. "Abuchi, you've matured a lot in this year." Looking at the current Lu Yuan, although he was only 14 years old, he was already like a 17 or 18-year-old youth. The immaturity on his face had gradually faded, and in turn, there was a sense of maturity. This disciple of hers had really grown a lot. "Your soul power has reached rank 57? Bibidon asked. "Yes, it has indeed reached rank 57, Lu Yuan responded. He wasn't surprised that Bibidon could see his strength at a glance. Since Sendryu could see it, then Bibidon could naturally see it too. Her realm was no lower than Sendryu's. The reason why she was slightly weaker in strength was that she couldn't use all of her strength because of the Rakshasa inheritance. However, thinking of the Rakshasa deity, Lu Yuan's heart always felt a little uncomfortable. This god was too dark, evil, and ugly. Apart from Chihiro disease and Yu Xiaogang, the reason why Bibidon had become like this, and Rakshasa of God. Of the Chihiro disease and Yu Xiaogang. It even developed to the point of madness. The Rakshasa deity was definitely not a good thing. This god was the god of evil thoughts. If Bibidon didn't get rid of this Rakshasa inheritance, Lu Yuan was worried that one day, she would become like in the original work. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan couldn't help but think of the Neptune's heart in his mind. This thing was the inheritance of the Neptune. After it was intercepted by him, it had been placed in his sea of consciousness. Moreover, he wasn't very interested in the Neptune's deity position. But no matter what, the Neptune's deity position was still a first-class deity position. Moreover, the Neptune was the top existence among first-class deities. His strength was much stronger than that of the Rakshasa deity. If it was given to Bibidon, would it be better? Moreover, with Bibidon's talent, it was enough to trigger the Neptune's 9 tests. Instead of letting Tang San pick up the scraps in the future, it was better to give the Neptune's deity position to Bibidon. It could be considered keeping the goodies within the family. Seeing that Lu Yuan was staring at him in a daze after he finished speaking, Bibidon couldn't help but be a little puzzled. Was there something on his face? "Abuchi," Bibidon called softly. Hearing Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan instantly recovered from his daze. "What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed in your thoughts?" Bibidon asked. "No, nothing. It's just that teacher is too beautiful, so I was a little dazed for a while," Lu Yuan said with a smile. "Bah, glib tongue, not serious at all. You only know how to say nice things to coax people. Teacher is not little girls like Nana and Zhu Qing. I don't fall for this." Bibidon glared at Lu Yuan with her beautiful eyes. This little disciple of hers, had he coaxed too many little girls? He even dared to do this in front of her. "Tell me, why are you looking for teacher?" Bibidon said in a bad mood. "Yes, it's just that I have a gift for teacher." Lu Yuan smiled slightly. You have a gift for me. Bibidon's beautiful eyes lit up slightly. She gently sized up Lu Yuan with a smile on her face. At least you have some conscience. You know how to be filial to your teacher. You're not like that little girl Nana. Other than junior brother, all she talks about is junior brother. She doesn't care about me at all. Bibidon's tone was subtle, and there was a hint of jealousy in it. She had painstakingly raised this disciple of hers, but in the end, he had his heart set on another disciple and didn't care about her at all. How could she not feel jealous in her heart? Fortunately, this little disciple of hers still had a conscience and knew to bring her a gift. Her love for him wasn't in vain. After hearing Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan chuckled and didn't comment. Indeed, Hulena had devoted her heart and soul to him, so this time, he decided to give Hulena the torso bone of the Ant Emperor that he had obtained from the Bear Lord as a reward for her. Take it out. I want to see what you're going to give me. Bibidon smiled slightly and said. Teacher, please wait a moment. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. With a wave of his spiritual power, a ball of light enveloped in a dense white light flew out from between Lu Yuan's brows. Then, it expanded slightly and landed in Lu Yuan's hand. Teacher, here. Lu Yuan handed the white ball of light in his hand to Bibidon. What is this? Bibidon looked at the white ball of light in his hand and was a little puzzled. This is actually the external soul bone of a 10,000-year man-faced demonic spider. Back then, I hunted a 10,000-year man-faced demonic spider in the setting sun forest and obtained this external soul bone. I thought that teacher's martial souls were the Death Spider Emperor and the Soul-Devouring Pearl Emperor, which would be very compatible with this external soul bone, so I wrapped it in my divine power and hid it in my sea of consciousness. I'll give it to teacher when we return to Martial Spirit City. Lu Yuan said softly. Abuchi. Looking at the white ball of light in his hand, Bibidon was a little touched. In her life, no one had ever cared about her like this. Furthermore, the external soul bone was a priceless treasure. Not only did this disciple of hers not absorb it for himself, but he even brought it back for her. He was really good to her. She really didn't accept Abuchi as her disciple for nothing. Bibidon thought to herself. Looking at the white ball in his hand, a gentle look flashed across Bibidon's eyes. She raised her empty hand and gently rubbed Lu Yuan's head. Chapter 471. Feeling the warmth from Bibidon's hand, Lu Yuan could not help but narrow his eyes, and a look of enjoyment appeared on his face. He liked this kind of intimate feeling very much. Only Bibidon could give him this kind of caring feeling. After rubbing Lu Yuan's head, Bibidon withdrew her hand. Looking at the white ball in her hand, she looked at Lu Yuan with even more gentleness and care. Teacher, there's one more thing I want to give you. Lu Yuan said softly. Oh, what else do you want to give me? Bibidon asked with a chuckle. Teacher, are you accepting the Rakshasa deity's inheritance now? Lu Yuan looked at Bibidon closely and asked softly. Where did you find out? After Lu Yuan pointed out her biggest secret, Bibidon could not help but narrow her eyes. She looked at Lu Yuan with a sense of oppression. Ever since she devoured Chihiro Disease's angelic divine soul, she had entered the Rakshasa secret realm and accepted the Rakshasa deity's assessment. However, this matter was very secretive. Even Sendryu was only vaguely aware of it. He might know that she had accepted the inheritance, but he would not know what kind of inheritance she had accepted. However, today, her little disciple actually knew that she had accepted the Rakshasa inheritance. Bibidon could not help but feel a little shocked, and then a huge doubt arose in her heart. However, Lu Yuan did not avoid Bibidon's oppressive gaze at all. He did not believe that Bibidon would attack him now. He was sure that his position in Bibidon's heart was not low. Bibidon looked at Lu Yuan closely, and the aura on her body condensed and was ready to be released. The news of the Rakshasa inheritance was too important. Bibidon could not help but think too much in her heart. What else does this little disciple of mine know? Does he want to harm me? Bibidon, who had been tainted by Rakshasa's aura all year round, immediately got the wrong idea. A sharp glint flashed across her eyes. Sensing Bibidon's rising aura, Lu Yuan's face remained calm. He looked straight into Bibidon's eyes and said calmly, "Teacher, do you want to kill me?" Facing Lu Yuan's clear and calm eyes, Bibidon's heart suddenly trembled. The fierceness in her eyes quickly dissipated and the aura on her body began to slowly recede. No matter what, the boy in front of her was her most beloved disciple. She had watched him grow up, and he was very filial to her. He had almost never disobeyed her. What had she gone crazy just now? How could she suspect that he wanted to harm her? An apologetic look flashed through Bibi Dong's eyes. He had just given her an incomparably precious external soul bone, and she was now suspecting that he was trying to harm her. She couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. "I'm sorry, Abuchi. Teacher had the wrong idea just now. Teacher apologizes to you," Bibidon said softly. "No need, teacher. I can understand. The Rakshasa god's divine power is dark and evil. It can easily drive people to extremes. It's normal for you to have the wrong idea just now. After all, what I said did shock you a little. But, teacher, I can swear on my martial soul that I will never do anything to harm you in my life. Otherwise, let my martial soul be shattered and I will be a cripple for the rest of my life." Lu Yuan looked at Bibidon with burning eyes and said word by word. Looking at the sincerity and determination in Lu Yuan's eyes, Bibidon was greatly moved. She raised her lily-white hand and gently stroked Lu Yuan's cheek. "Don't say any more, Abuchi. Teacher believes in you." Bibidon's tone was gentle, and her eyes had an unprecedented gentleness. After all, Lu Yuan had sworn on his martial soul. This was the most vicious oath in the entire Douluo continent. Suddenly, Bibidon no longer had a trace of doubt in her heart. However, she still had some doubts in her heart. How did Lu Yuan know that she had obtained the Rakshasa inheritance? "Abuchi, how did you know that teacher had obtained the Rakshasa inheritance?" Bibidon asked softly. "Actually, I've known about this for a long time. It started when I obtained the clear air god's seed." Lu Yuan explained in detail, "Because of some special secrets, I have a rather good understanding of the situation in the god realm. I also have a rough idea of which famous gods there are in the god realm. My clear air god's power is naturally more sensitive to evil auras. Actually, I've long felt that there's a dark, resentful, and malicious power in teacher's body. This power is exceptionally strong, and its quality is extremely high. It's not inferior to the divine power of the angel god. And this kind of power is not something that a human soul master can possess. The only one who can possess it is a god. And the only god who possesses this kind of power in the entire god realm is the Rakshasa god. Therefore, I concluded that teacher, you have received the Rakshasa god's inheritance. And teacher, you've already reached the limit level. But perhaps because of this Rakshasa inheritance, you're still unable to unleash your full strength." "Yes." Bibidon nodded gently. From Lu Yuan's words, she finally knew how Lu Yuan knew that she had received the Rakshasa inheritance. It turned out that he had guessed it based on the Rakshasa god's power in her body. However, how did Abuchi know the situation of the gods in the god realm so clearly? A trace of confusion flashed through Bibidon's heart. But she didn't intend to ask. Since this was Lu Yuan's secret, then she would let him continue to keep it to himself. She was concerned about another matter. "Abuchi, you said that there's another thing that you want to give me. What is it?" Bibidon asked curiously. "It's this." Lu Yuan opened his right hand, and the vast sea universe shield flew out from between his eyebrows. Then, it landed in his palm and spun around. "This is..." Looking at the vast sea universe shield in Lu Yuan's hand, a trace of surprise flashed through Bibidon's eyes. With her spiritual power, she could naturally sense the boundless power of the vast sea within the vast sea universe shield. This thing was definitely not simple. If she wasn't mistaken, it should be a divine artifact. This is the vast sea universe shield, also known as the heart of the sea god. It's an indispensable item for the sea god's inheritance. It can be said that once you obtain it, the sea god's inheritance is basically in your hands. The Rakshasa god is too dark and not suitable for you, so I want to give it to you. When the time comes, you can inherit the position of the sea god. The sea god is also a first-tier god, and is even stronger than the Rakshasa god. It's very suitable for you, Lu Yuan said as he handed the vast sea universe shield to Bibidon. Seeing Lu Yuan handing the heart of the sea god to her, Bibidon didn't reach out to take it. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on Lu Yuan, and her eyes were full of fluctuations. After Lu Yuan's explanation, she finally understood her disciple's intentions. It turned out that her disciple wanted to give the sea god's inheritance to her. This made Bibidon feel greatly moved. However, why did Abuchi treat her so well? Bibidon thought to herself. Chapter 472. Abuchi, why are you so nice to teacher? Bibidon asked softly as she looked carefully at Lu Yuan. Because you're my teacher. In my heart, you're as important as Cher, senior sister, and Zhu Qing, Lu Yuan replied softly as he met Bibidon's gaze. Abuchi. Bibidon knew from the sincerity in Lu Yuan's eyes that her disciple was telling the truth. She couldn't help but feel gratified. Her disciple was truly filial. Speaking of which, no one had ever treated her so well in her life. There was no need to mention Chihiro disease. He was a beast in human clothing. He actually dared to do such a thing to her disciple. She took advantage of his heavy injuries to kill him and even devoured his soul. It was precisely because of this that she was able to enter the Rakshasa mystic realm and obtain the Rakshasa inheritance. Yu Xiaogang. Her love for Yu Xiaogang was basically one-sided. When had Yu Xiaogang ever given her anything? When they were together, they only talked about theories. He was the person who was most interested in theories. When he was in the Martial Soul Palace, his favorite place to go was the Martial Soul Palace's library to borrow information. How much time did he have to care about her? Not to mention giving her any gifts. However, this disciple of hers was different. Not only did she give her a priceless treasure like the external soul bone, she was even willing to give her the God position inheritance. The God position inheritance was such a precious thing. Her disciple had given it to her without any hesitation. This made Bibidon's heart surge with emotions that couldn't be calmed down for a long time. Unknowingly, Lu Yuan's position in Bibidon's heart rose to a whole new level. Bibidon gently raised her hand and caressed Lu Yuan's face. Her eyes were filled with love. Teacher, please accept it. Lu Yuan grabbed Bibidon's hand and placed the Neptune's heart in her hand. Bibidon's beautiful eyes sparkled as she looked at the Neptune's heart in her hand. She didn't care about Lu Yuan grabbing her hand. What she cared about was Lu Yuan's concern for her. It was a concern that she rarely felt. The Neptune's heart emitted a gentle light that seemed to be able to cleanse one's soul. Bibidon only felt that the light was so dazzling that it seemed to even purify the corrupted soul that had been corroded by the Rakshasa's power. She sighed softly, and then grabbed Lu Yuan's hand and placed the Neptune's heart in Lu Yuan's hand again. Teacher, what are you doing? Looking at Bibidon's actions, Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with confusion. The Neptune's position was clearly better than the Rakshasa deity position, but why did Bibidon refuse? Abuchi, you should keep this Neptune's heart for yourself. Even if you don't need it, you can give it to Nana or Zhu Qing. It's a waste to give it to teacher. Teacher already has the Rakshasa deity's inheritance and has completed the 6th test. Teacher is now in the 7th test. Teacher has worked hard for more than 10 years. If I give up now, wouldn't all my hard work be in vain? Bibidon smiled and said, moreover, the Rakshasa deity is also a first-tier god. If teacher takes the Neptune's heart, he will definitely lose the Rakshasa deity position. Wouldn't that be a pity? If you give the Neptune's inheritance to Nana or Zhu Qing, wouldn't you have another deity position? That would be more worth it. Teacher, this isn't how it should be calculated. Although you are now taking the Rakshasa's 7th test, it doesn't mean that you will take more time to take the Neptune's 9 tests. As long as you don't have the Rakshasa's inheritance, your strength can instantly recover to the level of an ultimate Douluo. If an ultimate Douluo takes the 9 tests, they can directly skip the first 6 tests because the first 6 tests are a test of the examinee's basic strength. An ultimate Douluo undoubtedly already has enough strength, so once you take the Neptune's test, you will also start from the 7th test. It won't be much slower than when you take the Rakshasa's inheritance. Lu Yuan tried his best to persuade him. Abuchi, how do you know so much about the God's test? You haven't taken the God's 9 tests. In my opinion, the holy sword brand on your forehead shouldn't belong to the inheritance of the 9 tests. The angel's 9 tests should be share, right? Furthermore, even if you are the inheritor of a god, you shouldn't know so much about the God's test, right? Bibidon was a little puzzled. An ultimate Douluo could directly skip the first 6 tests if they took the 9 tests. She didn't even know this information, so how did Abuchi know? Could it be related to his secret again? Recalling that Lu Yuan had some understanding of the god, Bibidon couldn't help but have this thought. Teacher, you don't have to worry about how I know, but this is the truth. If you take the Neptune's test, your speed might not be much slower than the Rakshasa god. I am sure that if you take the Neptune's 9 tests, you can become a god within 10 years at the latest. If you continue to take the Rakshasa's test, your speed might not be any faster. If you want to become a god, you will also need about 10 years. Furthermore, the Rakshasa's test is too painful. At the same time, the Rakshasa god is the god of evil thoughts. If you continue like this, I am worried that you— What are you worried about? Bibidon asked. I am worried that your heart will be completely dyed in darkness by the Rakshasa god, and you will fall into a state of madness. Teacher, I don't want to see you become like this one day. Thinking of Bibidon, who almost went crazy at the end of the original work, Lu Yuan's heart suddenly clenched. He really didn't want to see Bibidon fall to such a state one day. What he hoped was that Bibidon would be different from the original work and have a good ending. Abuchi. Bibidon sighed softly, but still insisted on her own thoughts. She was very touched by Lu Yuan's concern for her, but she also had her own thoughts and feelings. As long as the knot in her heart was not untied, she would not be free. Ever since that incident, that nightmare had been haunting her, and she could no longer get rid of it. Furthermore, the Neptune was also a god that contained the power of light. Could the darkness in her heart really accept the position of the Neptune's god? Moreover, her 2 martial souls were not compatible with the position of the Neptune. The Death Spider Emperor and the Soul-Devouring Pearl Emperor were such evil martial souls. She was born to inherit the evil thoughts of the Rakshasa god. Thinking of this, Bibidon's face flashed with a self-deprecating smile. Take it back. Bibidon pushed back the Neptune's heart that was stuffed into Lu Yuan's hand, along with his palm. Teacher, you? Looking at Bibidon's actions, Lu Yuan really couldn't figure it out. He had already said so much, but Bibidon still chose to refuse. Lu Yuan opened his mouth to say something, but was interrupted by Bibidon. Don't try to persuade me. Teacher has already made up his mind and will not change it. Bibidon's tone was soft, but full of determination. Chapter 473. Hearing the determination in Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan's expression became complicated. Could it be that he still wanted Bibidon to take the so-called Rakshasa divine test? Was he just going to watch Bibidon fall into that crazy state again? Lu Yuan was very unwilling in his heart. However, Bibidon had already made up her mind, and he couldn't change Bibidon's mind. Bibidon wasn't Chihiro Snow. Although Chihiro Snow was stubborn, she listened to him because he was Chihiro Snow's man. However, in front of Bibidon, he was just a disciple. He should be the one who listened. Lu Yuan sighed deeply. He looked a little disappointed. He was full of confidence and wanted to change something, but he couldn't change anything. This feeling was really bad. Looking at the disappointed expression on Lu Yuan's face, Bibidon smiled. She raised her hand and rubbed Lu Yuan's head. This disciple of hers sincerely wanted to give the sea god's inheritance treasure to her, but she directly rejected him. He must be feeling terrible. Moreover, he was right. The darkness in her heart was increasing, and it was very likely that she would fall into madness in the future. Or rather, she had already started to go crazy. After all, she was the one who understood herself the most. She wanted to take revenge on this world, and she also wanted to destroy the martial soul palace. She also wanted to destroy the angel clan. However, Bibidon was a little hesitant now. Even if the whole world had let her down, there were still people in this world who cared about her. There were still people who thought about her. This world wasn't really without any warmth. Moreover, this little disciple of hers and Cher was so dedicated to the great cause of the martial soul palace. Did she really want to destroy the martial soul palace and destroy the blood, sweat, and tears they had worked so hard for so long? Bibidon's heart began to waver. After all, Lu Yuan's words had touched her. Teacher. Feeling the warmth from Bibidon's hand that was gently rubbing his head, Lu Yuan called out softly, Abuchi. Bibidon's jade-like hand paused, her gaze locked with Lu Yuan's. Her eyes were filled with love as she said, You don't have to worry about teacher. Even if teacher has completely fallen into madness, teacher will never hurt you. Teacher promises you. Looking at Bibidon's gentle and caring eyes, Lu Yuan sighed softly again and remained silent for a long time. Creak. Lu Yuan gently pushed open the door of the room. The room was brightly lit, and a faint fragrance filled the air. Hearing the sound, Helena immediately turned around. Seeing Lu Yuan walk in, a brilliant smile appeared on her face. Junior brother, you're back? Helena's soft voice sounded with a hint of charm. There was a hint of joy in her tone. En. Lu Yuan lightly nodded. Then come over quickly. Senior sister has been waiting for you for a long time. Helena winked at Lu Yuan, as if she was releasing some special signal. However, Lu Yuan acted as if he didn't see it. He walked straight forward and gently sat down at the head of the bed. Not getting the response she expected, Helena slightly frowned. There was a hint of confusion in her beautiful eyes. The current junior brother was a bit strange. If it was a normal junior brother, he might have already pounced on her. Unlike now, where he didn't seem to have any reaction at all and was completely oblivious to her charms. What's wrong, junior brother? Did something happen? Helena gently hugged Lu Yuan from behind. Her charming face was placed on Lu Yuan's back as she asked softly. Nothing. Lu Yuan said softly. Junior brother, don't lie to me. Your current appearance is very different from usual. It's obvious that you're not in a good mood. Who made you angry? Could it be that something unpleasant happened between you and teacher? Helena asked softly. There's no such thing. Don't guess blindly. What unpleasant thing could happen between me and teacher? I don't even have enough time to respect and love her. Why would I go and annoy her? Lu Yuan lightly said. Then what's going on, junior brother? Helena gently blinked her beautiful eyes and asked softly. It's really nothing. I'm just a little depressed. Don't worry about me, senior sister. Gently holding Helena's hands, Lu Yuan softly said. Listening to Lu Yuan's words, Helena's eyes slightly flickered. Her intuition told her that something must have happened. Otherwise, with junior brother's cheerful personality, he wouldn't be depressed for no reason. It's just that junior brother obviously didn't want to tell her. This made her somewhat helpless. If junior brother didn't want to say, she couldn't do anything. Alright, don't worry about me. I'm really fine. After pushing Helena's hands away, Lu Yuan turned around and gently caressed Helena's face. He squeezed out a smile and said, Senior sister, let me give you a present. Give me a present? But didn't you say that you'll give me a reward if I perform well? But I haven't performed yet. Helena stared fixedly at Lu Yuan. A faint charm flashed across her eyes. If I do it with junior brother, his mood should be better. Helena thought to herself. I'll perform tomorrow. I don't have such thoughts now. Lu Yuan softly said. With a shake of his hand, an extremely complete earthy yellow soul bone appeared in his hand. Suddenly, there seemed to be an additional dense aura in the air. It was the 90,000-year-old thousand Kati and Emperor's torso bone. Junior brother, this is? Helena's eyes were filled with intense astonishment. This soul bone's quality was extremely high. Furthermore, it seemed to be a torso bone. A 90,000-year-old thousand Kati and Emperor's torso bone. Senior sister, you can absorb it. Lu Yuan softly said as he handed the torso bone to Helena. A 90,000-year-old thousand Cati and Emperor's torso bone? Junior brother, this is an extremely rare treasure. It's too much of a waste to give it to me. You should keep it for yourself. Seeing that Lu Yuan actually gave her such a precious soul bone, Helena was first astonished. After that, she thought of returning it to Lu Yuan. Although soul bones were precious, in Helena's eyes, Lu Yuan was the most important. Since I've given it to you, it's yours. Furthermore, apart from external soul bones, all of my soul bones have to be at least 100,000 years old. I'm not interested in this soul bone, so senior sister, you should absorb it. Lu Yuan said plainly. Hearing this, Helena revealed a strange expression. What is he saying? Apart from external soul bones, he's not interested in soul bones below 100,000 years old? Does this sound like something a human would say? Should I say that he's indeed junior brother? Isn't his standards a little too high? However, although Helena's expression was a little strange, she was very happy in her heart. A 90,000-year-old thousand Cati and Emperor's torso bone was definitely worth more than 100,000 years old soul bone. However, Hua Yuhao actually gave it to her. Thinking about it, she was still very important to Hua Yuhao. As Helena thought about it, she revealed a smile in her eyes. Chapter 474. Lu Yuan lay on his bed quietly as his thoughts wandered. Beside him, Helena was absorbing the 90,000-year-old thousand-kilogram and Emperor's bone. A 90,000-year-old bone contained a lot of energy. After absorbing this soul bone, Helena's abilities should increase by 1 rank. Helena had already reached rank 56 a year ago. After a year, although she had spent a lot of time polishing her soul power had still increased by 2 ranks thanks to the hidden effects of the yearning heartbroken red. She was now at rank 58. With this 1,000-kilogram and Emperor's bone, she should be able to reach rank 59. There was still about half a year before the Continental Soul Master Tournament. By then, Helena might already be a Soul Emperor. She was 1 rank higher than she was at the same time in the original story. And all of this was brought about by Lu Yuan. It could be said that Helena had grown a lot with Lu Yuan's help. Thinking about Zhu Zhuqing, Lu Yuan could tell at a glance how much she had improved since his return. In a year, she had increased by leaps and bounds. From rank 45 to rank 51, she had crossed the threshold of becoming a Soul King. Lu Yuan was a little surprised. However, Lu Yuan thought about it carefully. He had left 5 Spirit Ascension pills for Zhu Zhuqing. With these 5 Spirit Ascension pills, she should be able to increase her soul power by 3 ranks. In addition to Zhu Zhuqing's cultivation over the past year, it didn't seem impossible for her to increase by 5 ranks. Roughly speaking, Chihiro Snow was now at rank 67, Helena was at rank 59 after absorbing the soul bone, and Zhu Zhuqing was at rank 51. His 3 women were growing very quickly. Of course, he wasn't slow either. He was only 14 years old, but he was already at rank 57. By the time the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament came, even if he couldn't become a Soul Emperor, he would at least be at rank 58 or 59. Unknowingly, he and his women had grown a lot. I wonder how strong they are now. Lu Yuan thought to himself. He would naturally find out about his combat strength tomorrow. Lu Yuan's double pupils flickered slightly as if he had thought of something important. He sighed helplessly. The others were fine, but Bibidan's matter was really difficult to handle. He just couldn't put his heart at ease. I wonder if teacher has absorbed the external attachment soul bone of the 10,000-year man-faced demon spider, and how much progress has he made? Lu Yuan's mind spun rapidly. In an antique room, Bibidan sat on the bed. Dark black energy undulated on her body. Finally, this energy was completely absorbed at a certain point. With a tearing sound, a dark purple light condensed on Bibidan's back. 8 pairs of dark purple wings tore the clothes on her back and drilled out. The 8 pairs of dark purple wings flickered with a faint dark purple light. At the same time, There were long and narrow dark purple barbs on each wing. The barbs were glowing with purple light, and they were full of potent poison. The 8 pairs of wings stretched out secretly, and pure energy was absorbed from the air. After that, the pure energy replenished Bibidon's body and helped her recover her soul power. This time, I really have to thank Ibuchi. My external attachment soul bone has evolved a lot. Not only did it change from 6 wings to 8, but it also has the ability to devour and poison. It can also absorb energy from the air to speed up the recovery of soul power. A trace of a smile appeared on Bibidon's face. With this trace of a smile, her already incomparably beautiful face appeared even more gorgeous. It was truly enough to cause the downfall of a city. The original external attachment soul bone was called the 6-winged purple light wings. Since it has 8 wings now, let's call it the 8-winged purple light wings. Bibidon softly said, and decided on the name of the external attachment soul bone. Perhaps some people would find it strange that the 6-winged purple light wings, together with the external attachment soul bone that was similar to the 8 spider spear, still only had 8 wings after the mutation. This was because 6 of the ribs that the 2 soul bones were attached to had overlapped. Therefore, even after the evolution, it still only had 8 wings. However, 8 wings was still fine. If it really had 14 wings, it would really be a little clown. The more wings you had, the better you looked. The 8-winged purple light wings gently stretched out. With a thought, Bibidon put them away. Once the 8-winged purple light wings were retracted, Bibidon's jade-like white back was revealed through the gap in her clothes. This was also why Bibidon waited for Lu Yuan to leave before absorbing the external attachment soul bone. It was because she didn't want Lu Yuan to see this scene. After all, although they were master and disciple, there was still a difference between men and women. Therefore, Bibidon was still very concerned about this point. However, what she didn't know was that the things that should be seen had already been seen by a certain unscrupulous fellow a long time ago because of an accident. It was just that he had always hidden it deep in his heart, and didn't dare to say it out loud. The 8-winged purple light wings were retracted, and the joy on Bibidon's face gradually disappeared. She couldn't help but have a complicated look in her eyes as she recalled the scene before Lu Yuan left. At that time, Lu Yuan was leaning against the door. He slightly turned around and looked at Bibidon. He gently opened his mouth and spoke in a calm tone. "Teacher, you should let go of what you should let go of. That person you thought you loved deeply, perhaps your feelings for him weren't strictly speaking love, but a kind of obsession. Perhaps you don't love him as a person, but the image in your heart, the image in which you have placed all your hopes and beauty. You think he is perfect in your heart, but in reality, he is not as perfect as you imagine him to be. When a person encounters an enormous pain that they can't resist, or even when they fall into the abyss of despair, they will always hope to protect the last piece of pure land in their heart. It's like a person who has fallen into darkness, hoping to grasp the last ray of light. At this time, the more intense the invasion of darkness is, the more stubborn they will be to that ray of light. And Rakshasa is extreme and dark. It will completely transform this kind of stubbornness into obsession, and even deeply sink into a state of paranoia. The feelings that were originally just like first love were forcibly drawn into a maddening sadomasochistic love. Let go of the obsession in your heart, and face the figure in your heart in your clear-headed state. Are you sure your love for him is really that deep? Is it him that you're reluctant to part with, or is it the pure and beautiful time of first love? And is he really worthy of you investing all of your body, mind, and feelings in him? Lu Yuan's calm and gentle gaze was closely fixed on Bibidon. His eyes were filled with deep concern, and his calm voice, which could easily touch one's heart, came out of his mouth and went straight into Bibidon's ears. Teacher, think about it carefully. Looking at the slightly stunned Bibidon, Lu Yuan sighed softly and turned to leave. Chapter 475. Ibuchi, how many secrets do you know about me? The scene before Lu Yuan left surfaced in her mind. His words also rang in Bibidon's heart. Lu Yuan's words contained too much information. Bibidon suspected that this disciple of hers already knew her deepest secrets. Whether it was Chihiro disease or Yu Xiaogang's relationship with her, this disciple of hers probably knew everything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have purposely left those words before he left. He knew the knot in his heart, which was why he left behind these last words to remind him before he left. This disciple of his had always been very mysterious. There was always a veil of mystery around him. This was especially so after Long Xiaoyao's appearance. His mysteriousness was completely revealed. She knew about Lu Yuan's explanation to Chihiro Snow. However, she wasn't Chihiro Snow. She only believed half of Lu Yuan's words. She was the Pope of the Martial Soul Palace. Her intelligence was top-notch. Lu Yuan's explanation was reasonable, but it wasn't without loopholes. Chihiro Snow might not be able to tell because he wasn't experienced enough. However, she could tell that something was different. Furthermore, Lu Yuan's endless tricks, soul tools, pills, and so on were all things that had been lost or never existed. If Lu Yuan could take them out, there had to be a deeper secret behind him. Bibidon didn't ask about it. That was because she believed that Lu Yuan belonged to the Martial Soul Palace. He wouldn't betray her. She didn't approve of others easily. However, once she did, she would have a lot of trust in that person. Lu Yuan's actions didn't betray her trust. Bibidon could naturally sense the concern in Lu Yuan's words. It was also because Lu Yuan's words were so sincere that Bibidon was touched. She didn't care how Lu Yuan knew about her secret. She was more concerned about the content of Lu Yuan's words. Was it really like what Ibuchi had said? Was what she felt for Xiaogang not love, but an obsession? Bibidon had a complicated look in her eyes. She wouldn't have cared if someone else had said something like this. That was because Yu Xiaogang was too important to her. If someone else had said something like this, she would have suspected that someone was trying to harm her by using Xiaogang to disrupt her thoughts. However, Lu Yuan was different. Lu Yuan also had an important position in her heart. Furthermore, this disciple of hers treated her very well. He was even willing to give her treasures like the external soul bone and the Neptune's heart. Bibidon wouldn't believe that Lu Yuan was trying to harm her. Furthermore, Lu Yuan swore on his martial soul that he would never hurt her in this life. Bibidon didn't have any doubts about Lu Yuan anymore. It was because of this that Lu Yuan's words could easily touch her heart. Could it be that he had really fallen into paranoia? Was she really just obsessed with Xiaogang? Then, should I really try to let go of all this? Bibidon was a little hesitant. She sighed softly, and there was a trace of melancholy in her voice. Her originally indestructible heart was slightly shaken. She couldn't help but have a trace of doubt about her feelings for Yu Xiaogang. Was Xiaogang the person that she had always remembered in her heart, or was she really just reluctant to part with the beautiful times when she was first in love? Bibidon couldn't tell, but she had to admit that Lu Yuan's words made sense. This was also the reason why Lu Yuan said those words. Yu Xiaogang might have a deep obsession in Bibidon's heart. It was impossible to persuade her to let go after just one time. However, it was entirely possible to plant a seed of doubt in her heart with Lu Yuan's current position in her heart. If Bibidon really wanted to be free, then she had to let go of Yu Xiaogang. Moreover, Yu Xiaogang was now wholeheartedly assisting Tang San. In the future, he was destined to be an enemy of the Martial Soul Palace. If he didn't get rid of Bibidon's obsession with Yu Xiaogang, it would be troublesome to deal with Yu Xiaogang in the future. Of course, Lu Yuan could easily crush Yu Xiaogang, but he was afraid that Bibidon would feel uncomfortable in her heart, or even resent him. This was something that he didn't want to see. However, if Bibidong truly recognized himself and completely let go of Yu Xiaogang, then he wouldn't hesitate to make a move against Yu Xiaogang. Tang San, Yu Xiaogang, they would all be killed with one slap. He didn't put these two people in his eyes at all. Tang San was never his opponent. He had always been concerned about Bibidon. The Son of Fate might be amazing in the eyes of others, but in front of him, it was just SOSO. Especially recently, when he was comprehending the clear air god seed, he could also feel that there was a mysterious force supporting him, allowing him to do things smoothly. If he wasn't wrong, it should be the power of fate. Moreover, His fate should be above Tang San's. As for where his fate came from, it might be related to the clear air god seed in his body. When a son of fate's fate was inferior to his own, what was there to worry about? There was no need to worry at all. Bibidon sighed again and stood up. The clothes on her back were torn, she needed to change. Junior apprentice brother, wake up. In the morning, Lu Yuan was still sleeping soundly when he felt an itchy feeling on his face. He instantly woke up from his sleep. He thought a lot last night, so he slept a little late and didn't wake up in time this morning. Lu Yuan opened his eyes and saw Helena's beautiful face. She was holding a feather and gently playing with his face. Seeing Lu Yuan open his eyes, Helena spoke softly with a smile on her face. Junior apprentice brother, you're awake? What do you think? He looked at Helena speechlessly. How could he not wake up when she was playing with his face with a feather? Hee. Helena chuckled. She had just finished absorbing the 90,000-year-old thousand Catiant Emperor's torso bone, and her soul power had increased by another level. She was now at rank 59, so she couldn't help but wake Lu Yuan up to share her joy with him. You've finished absorbing, and your soul power has broken through? Lu Yuan asked softly as he looked at Helena's bright smile. Yes, it's completely integrated, and my soul power has also broken through by a level. Helena giggled, then pecked Lu Yuan's face and laid on Lu Yuan's body. Junior apprentice brother, you're the best. Helena said softly. Of course, who asked you to be my dearest senior apprentice sister? Lu Yuan gently hugged Helena's waist and said gently. Chapter 476. Of course, who asked you to be my most beloved senior sister? Lu Yuan's hands gently wrapped around Helena's waist. With a smile on his face, he held her tightly in his arms. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Helena smiled even more happily. She gently lay in Lu Yuan's arms, her beautiful face full of joy. He raised his right hand slightly and rubbed Helena's head. That short golden hair was very soft and comfortable to the touch. He gently glanced at the sky outside. A red light had just appeared in the east, and the sun had not risen yet. It was still quite early. His senior sister had actually woken him up at this time. He probably slept for less than 4 hours last night. However, his mental strength was very strong, and it was not a big deal for him to sleep for a short time occasionally. Hugging Helena's delicate body and feeling her softness, Lu Yuan's breathing could not help but become heavy. He was in a bad mood last night, so he did not do anything. However, his mood had long since recovered. As he hugged Helena so tightly, some bad thoughts appeared again. Moreover, Helena was not being honest. He could clearly feel that Helena was doing some vague movements, as if she was deliberately teasing him. This made Lu Yuan feel a little amused. It turned out that he was not the only one who could not control himself. His senior sister was also the same. It should still be in time at this time, Lu Yuan muttered. Moreover, other than testing Cher and Zhu Qing's strength today, there's nothing important to do. So even if I wake up a little late, it shouldn't affect me much, Lu Yuan thought to himself. Then, with that thought in mind, Lu Yuan could not help but look at Helena. At the same time, Helena could not help but look over as well. In an instant, a strange atmosphere began to appear. When the sun was high in the sky, Lu Yuan and Zhu Qing finally got out of bed. Lu Yuan was dressed in white and was full of energy. It was as if the less than 4 hours of sleep last night did not affect him at all. In fact, he even seemed to be more energetic. A gentle breeze blew, and Lu Yuan's long hair that draped over his shoulders could not help but flutter in the wind. Out of nowhere, he gave off a carefree and unrestrained feeling. Helena was dressed in a white one-piece dress, and her short blonde hair looked clean and neat. Her face was glowing red, and she was in a very good state. Her pair of flirtatious and beautiful eyes were watery, and carried a strange charm. Today, Helena seemed to be particularly charming. The two walked together to the pavilion in the middle of the lake. Bibidon, Chihiro Snow, and Zhu Qing had already arrived. In front of them was breakfast, but it seemed that they had not touched it at all. It was obvious that they were all waiting for Lu Yuan and Zhu Qing. Seeing Lu Yuan and Helena come together, Chihiro Snow and Zhu Zhuqing looked at Lu Yuan at the same time, and a trace of resentment flashed in their eyes. Seeing this, Lu Yuan could not help but gently rub his nose, feeling a little guilty. Helena, on the other hand, did not seem to be affected, and still had a bright smile on her face. "Since you're here, then sit down and eat." Looking at the two, Bibidon said softly. "Okay." Lu Yuan nodded slightly, then found an empty seat and sat down, just in between Chihiro Snow and Zhu Zhuqing. This was great. The two women's resentful eyes kept wandering around him, making him a little uncomfortable. He had no choice but to pretend that he did not see, and looked at Bibidon, who was sitting opposite him. Bibidon's face was calm, as if Lu Yuan's words last night did not affect her at all. Lu Yuan looked at her carefully, as if trying to find some clues. Noticing that Lu Yuan's eyes were looking at her face, Bibidon could not help but glare at him, which made Lu Yuan immediately withdraw his gaze. Seeing Lu Yuan withdraw his gaze, Bibidon's beautiful eyes blinked, and she felt a little funny. She could roughly understand Lu Yuan's thoughts. Wasn't he just trying to see if she had changed after hearing his words last night? But she was the Pope. How could it be so easy for others to see through her thoughts? Abuchi, this child, was underestimating her teacher too much. And to stare at her so directly, this child Abuchi was a little rude. But that being said, Bibidon was not angry in her heart. Lu Yuan's concern for her was very useful in her heart. Looking at Lu Yuan, who had his head lowered, and looking at Helena, who was smiling brightly, her face flushed, and in high spirits, Bibidon said softly, "In the future, pay attention to moderation, don't be too reckless, you're still young, pay attention to your health. And in the future, if you want to do anything at night, pay attention to the time, don't do things you shouldn't do early in the morning." Bibidon's voice was not loud, but to Lu Yuan and Lu Wenbin, it was earth-shattering, instantly shocking the two of them. Lu Yuan lowered his head slightly, his right hand gently scratching his head. Being called out by Bibidon like this, even with his thick skin, he could not hide it, and he felt a little embarrassed. And Helena, needless to say, her originally rosy little face was completely red, her head was lowered, and her pair of small hands grabbed the corner of her skirt. She was really embarrassed. After all, although she was bold and enthusiastic, it did not mean that her skin was thick. She was not Lu Wenbin. What's more, this time, even Lu Wenbin felt a little embarrassed. Looking at the two of them, Bibidon's lips curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. At this moment, Lu Yuan was a little curious. She had never seen her disciple so embarrassed. Seeing him like this was really quite interesting. Ahem, just pay attention in the future, let's eat first. Not letting this awkward mood continue for too long, Bibidon spoke softly and directly called the two of them to eat. "Yes, teacher." Hearing Bibidon's words, the two of them held their bowls and began to eat. Slowly, as they ate, the awkward atmosphere in the air gradually disappeared. "What are you going to do later?" After eating, Bibidon took a handkerchief and gently wiped her red lips. "Later, I want to test the strength of Cher and the others, and see how much they have grown in the past year." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "And I also want to show teacher my progress in the past year. I believe that teacher will be shocked when he sees my strength." He believed that when his 100,000-year soul ring was revealed, Bibidon would definitely be shocked. 100,000-year soul ring, this would definitely shock everyone on the continent. Even Bibidon certainly had not seen such an existence. Lu Yuan was definitely the only one in the world. "Oh, then I'll wait and see." Hearing the confidence in Lu Yuan's tone, Bibidon was also interested. She really wanted to see how much progress this disciple of hers had made in the past year to have such confidence. She could not help but feel a faint sense of anticipation in her heart. Chapter 477. Lu Yuan and the others appeared in an open space on Lake Heart Island. Lake Heart Island was actually very big. In addition to the pavilions used for living, there was also a large open space. At least, it was more than enough for battle. Looking at Chihiro Snow, Helena, and Zhu Zhuqing in front of him, Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Today's test won't be one-on-one. The three of you will come together." Let me see how strong you are when you join forces. Helena winked at Lu Yuan and said playfully, the three of you will come together. Junior brother, be careful that you will be beaten into a pig's head. We have 2 soul kings and 1 soul emperor here. Moreover, we are not ordinary soul kings and soul emperors. Junior brother, if you lose, don't cry. Of course, if you can beat me into a pig's head, I will be very happy. Because that means that you have really grown. I'm just afraid that you are not strong enough and will be defeated after a few rounds. If you lose even with 3 against 1, then none of you will be able to escape tonight. Let's go together. Looking at the 3 of them, Lu Yuan said with a chuckle. The 3 of us together. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, the 3 girls rolled their eyes at the same time and secretly spat. This guy is dreaming. That, can I go too? Zhu Zhuqing secretly spat at first, then as if she had discovered something, she asked Lu Yuan with a strange expression in her cold eyes. Ah, you. Looking at Zhu Zhuqing's gaze, Lu Yuan immediately knew what this girl was thinking. Just now, he had a slip of the tongue and included her. You don't count, just the 2 of them. Since he had recovered, Lu Yuan immediately added another sentence. Hearing this, Zhu Zhuqing's face revealed a trace of obvious disappointment. She looked at Lu Yuan with a trace of hidden bitterness. You are still young. Let's wait for another 2 years. Let's wait until you are 16. Looking at Zhu Zhuqing's somewhat disappointed eyes, Lu Yuan said softly. Zhu Zhuqing wasn't like him. Although Zhu Zhuqing developed very quickly in some aspects, her physical development was similar to that of a normal soul master. She was only considered to have fully developed at the age of 16. Only at this time, when doing that kind of thing, it would not cause any harm to her body. Zhu Zhuqing was only 14 years old, which was still too young. Because he had the bloodline of the 2nd-generation Golden Dragon, he developed extremely quickly. When he was 12 years old, his body was already comparable to that of a 16-year-old male soul master. Now that he was 14 years old, he was roughly comparable to that of an 18-year-old soul master. It could be said that Lu Yuan was almost fully developed now. Even in the future, there would not be much change. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Zhu Zhuqing's face dimmed for a moment. However, it returned to normal after a while. Lu Yuan did this because he cared about her. Therefore, although Zhu Zhuqing was a little disappointed, she was also slightly happy in her heart. How about it? You don't have any objections to my suggestion, right? Of course, even if you do, I won't accept it. This matter is settled. Lu Yuan waved his hand and made the final decision. You, scoundrel. Chihiro Snow and Helena couldn't help but roll their eyes at the same time. They were angry and amused at the same time. So everything is decided by you, and our opinions are not important at all. However, looking at this guy's appearance, it seemed like he really had them in his hands. The 3 of them were very strong. However, thinking about it carefully, this guy was clearly stronger. This was something that the 3 of them were well aware of. Although Helena said that just now, it was actually just a joke. Even Helena didn't have the slightest confidence that the 3 of them could defeat Lu Yuan together. After all, Lu Yuan had too many trump cards. It was dazzling. If he took out any one of them, the 3 of them would be defeated. In order to not let the 3 of them lose too badly, Helena felt that she had to make some requests. Junior brother, if you want us to fight together, you have to agree to one of our conditions. Helena's beautiful eyes slightly blinked and softly smiled. What condition? Lu Yuan asked curiously. You can't use the ability of polychoria. It's too powerful. If you use it, even if you win, I won't accept it, Helena said. Not using polychoria? Lu Yuan's eyes slightly blinked and said, okay, not only will I not use my polychoria, I won't even use the sea god's divine skill. If you lose, you should accept it wholeheartedly. Really? Hearing this, Chihiro Snow's eyes lit up. When she fought with Lu Yuan, she was defeated by the polychoria and indefinite storm. If Lu Yuan didn't use these 2, then even if she was alone, she was confident that she could fight against Lu Yuan. After all, the strength of her martial soul was similar to Lu Yuan's, but her martial soul was one level higher. Even if her cross-level ability was not as good as Lu Yuan's, it shouldn't be a problem to tie. If Helena and Zhu Zhuqing were added, she felt that her side had at least a 60% chance of winning. Do I finally have a chance to defeat Ibuchi again? Chihiro Snow thought to herself, with a trace of excitement in her eyes. Since the Great Soul Arena in Soto City, she had been suppressed by Ibuchi. Could it be that she had a chance to turn the tables again today? Of course. Lu Yuan smiled, looking at the excited faces of Chihiro Snow and Helena, with a trace of playfulness in his eyes. They wouldn't think that he was still the same person, right? With the fifth soul ring, he had already been reborn. It seems that I have a chance to have a wonderful night tonight. Lu Yuan thought to himself. Helena and Zhu Zhuqing naturally didn't find anything wrong, but Zhu Zhuqing frowned slightly. Her intuition had always been very accurate, and Lu Yuan never did things that he wasn't sure of. She looked at Helena and Chihiro Snow with a strange look. She always felt that the two of them would be overworked tonight. Since we have agreed, then let's start now. Lu Yuan said softly. Then let's start. Chihiro Snow's golden eyes lit up, with a strong fighting spirit. Today was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She must win against Ibuchi again. Helena also had a smile in her beautiful eyes. Since she was a child, she had always been defeated in front of her junior brother. Her charm ability had no effect on her junior brother. Today, she might have a chance to beat her junior brother. She was very happy in her heart. Even if she was caught by her junior brother and spanked afterwards, she would accept it. As for Zhu Zhuqing, her thoughts were much simpler. She just wanted to show her strength to Lu Yuan and let Lu Yuan know her progress. She wanted to let Lu Yuan know that she didn't let him down. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.